Beautiful people, please welcome to open our beautiful ceremony today, the Matua Otene Reweti.
Tēnā tātou katoa. It's my privilege today to open our proceedings. And so I'm going to start with the karakia. And the karakia talks about the birds of the forest and the birds of the sea, because something is happening in this forest of Tāmaki Makaurau today. That'll be our karakia. And then I will do a short mihi of welcome to all the travellers and all the people that are gathered here today. And I'll put my friend along. His name's Ukulele. So, and so we're going to connect with you today with a waiata. Instead of me singing the normal waiata, I am going to teach you a waiata, or you're going to sing the waiata with me, and it's easy. So, easy if you know the 9 stars of Matariki. So, yes, don't worry, I will teach you the words, and then we will all sing it together as my waiata. So let us begin this kaupapa today. Kei noi tātou, let us give thanks. Werohia ki papa tuanuku, werohia ki tai. He tuhi māre I kura ki te ao tūroa. Turuturu a tai e rua ana tohu. He toroa he amakura. Turuturu a uta he hui a tana tohu. Whakarongo ki te huia e tangi mai nā hui, huia. Huia ki runga, huia ki raro, huia ki roto, huia ki waho. Huia te here tangata e tā kia mai Hawaii ki nui, Hawaii ki roa, Hawaii ki pāmamao. Ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ao. Ka ao, ka ao, ka awatea. Tūturu o whiti whakamaua kia tīna. Haumi e hui e. No reira e ngā mana I ngā reo, reiranga tira mā kua tai ki tēnei kaupapa. Te rohia atu, te panea o horo iwi. Whakapuke, whakatiki ki waho rā. He tiki, he kauau, he tiki. Ka eke ki te tāhuna tōrea. He tiki, he kauau, he tiki. Ka eke, ki te waitamata tihei mauri ora. Te mea tuatahi māku ka mihi tonu ki tō tātou nei kaihanga. Ko ia te timatanga, ko ia te whakamutunga ngā mea katoa. Ko rorea, honore, ki tōna ingoa tapu. Ka hori anō kia rātau, kua whetūtia, rātau a te kāhui wairoa. Rātau I roto te kūpenga a taramai nuku. Haere koutou, moi mai rā. Rātau kia rātau, te hungamate ki te hungamate. Haere. Tātou ngā waihotanga o rātau mā hurino. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Ka hari ka koa, ka tūwhakaiti tēnei uri o Ngāti Whātua. Te mihi kia koutou, ko wai, ko no hea. Ka mihi tonu kia koutou I roto tēnei kaupapa. Hara mai, whakatau mai rā. I roto tēnei taone nui a Tāmaki Makaurau, Tāmaki herenga waka, Tāmaki herenga tangata. No reira, e te iwi, I ngā mana, rauranga tirama, hurino, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Just a short translation of because I know you all speak perfect Māori, and so it's just a warm welcome to all of you who have come today. But firstly, I look to our God, the Creator, the beginning and end of all things. Secondly, to those who are no longer with us, who have passed in the last week, in the last month, in the last year. Those who are entrapped in the net of taramai nuku. Because when taramai nuku in his waka comes, he collects them to be stars in the sky. May they rest in peace. But to you, the chiefs, the orators, the connectors that are here today, welcome. Welcome to this place that we call Tāmaki Makaurau. Tāmaki, the place where people love to be. Tāmaki, Heringa Waka. Tāmaki, the place where the waka gathered. Tāmaki, Heringa Tangata. Tāmaki, the place where people gather. And so we're gathering again here today. So to all of you from the four winds, we welcome you once, we welcome you twice, we welcome you 3 times. Nō reira, huri no tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. I can see my daughters smiling at me saying, you're not really going to do it, are you, Dad? Sorry, Maruata. And so if you know the 9 stars of Matariki, you've seen that we're coming into the phase of the Māori New Year. It's only appropriate that we connect with those stars today. So I want you to repeat the names of the stars. Waiti, Waitā, Waipunarangi, Tupuanuku, Tupuarangi, Ururangi, Pohutakawa, Hua i te rangi, E Matariki. Okay, you know the song now. So it goes, Waiti, Waitā, Waipunarangi, Tupuanuku, Tupuarangi, Ururangi, Pohutakawa, Hua i te rangi, E Matariki. Okay? Here we go. Connect with one another, that's what it's all about today. Make a connection. Waiti, Waitā, Torupa, Waiti, Waitā, Punarangi, Tupuanuku, Tupuarangi, Ururangi, Pohutakawa, Hua i te rangi, E Matariki. Again. Waiti, Waitā, Waipunarangi, Tupuanuku, Tupuarangi, Ururangi, Pohutakawa, Hua i te rangi, E Matariki. Hei! Nō reira, i ngā mana, i ngā reo. Reuranga tirama, huri no tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou. Hei a koutou, te rāka kore.
Beautiful, beautiful. Goodness me. Gosh,
Yeah.
what a great way to start us off. A
Waiti,
little singing lesson there.
Waipunarangi,
I forgot the words.
Puanuku,
Puarangi.
Love it. I didn't bring an ukulele.
I know. Hey, you're probably
Mum.
wondering who are those strapping, amazing people? You know
I
what?
am wondering. I'm wondering, Luke.
We just saw, hey, there's a Polynesian event on. Let's go party.
Let's go crash it.
Let's go crash the party.
Ooh,
Now, before we get into who we are, why we're here, and why we look
the light.
bloody amazing,
Kia ora.
when I arrived here today, I thought, oh my gosh, we are at the Kingdom of Tonga wedding today. And I was really hoping Princess Pelolevu is going to be walking on it.
He actually is a big fan.
Big fan. This
Yeah.
is fabulous, isn't
Here?
it?
Here? I don't think she's here.
No, she's not
No.
here. But you know what? If this is my wedding today, you're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Kia ora.
Hey, now we're going to introduce some fabulous MCs for you. We're just
Yeah.
the opening act, by the way.
We are. They've only got us for a little bit. We are
For a little bit. Well, we get to stay the night, so hey, why not? But we want to make sure that you are feeling the energy today. You're feeling the wairua today.
Yeah.
You're feeling the kaha today. And you are
Kōrero.
feeling me this afternoon.
All of that?
All that, Marcia. 196 centimeters of pure imagination.
Oh, kia ora. Don't measure me up, kids.
And you know what? If you want to go home with the smorgasbord today, Marcia is available.
Ai, tēnā koutou.
But to do that, to introduce our amazing MCs, oh, their names are already up there. Hey,
Oh,
look
wow.
at that. We want to make sure you are feeling litty, you are feeling litty titty, you are feeling great. The people in the back are feeling awesome.
Bomb.
So we're going to do a quick little applaud practice. This is going to be the same applause you're going to have for all of your speakers today
Yeah.
and for our amazing MCs who are about to be introduced shortly.
I just want to say, ki kaha,
Yeah.
be strong.
Kia ora, Auntie
Ai,
Matapaia.
tēnā koe.
All righty. So when I say please welcome to the stage, Marcia Hopper,
Yeah.
I want you to erupt like you have never erupted in your
I
life.
can't wait.
Are you ready for this? Kei te rite koutou, are you ready? a little bit of a great attitude here, bit of a
Yeah.
piss poor attitude
Yeah.
to my left.
Too much
Okay.
fry over there.
So
Yeah.
we're going to make sure everyone on this side, hush. You guys, come on now. Are you ready?
Ah,
Oh, good.
yeah, yeah.
I
they're warming up.
i Wainganui, are you ready? I
Okay.
really love your attitude today
Yeah, and your jacket.
and
Well
your
done.
jacket. And I'm loving your shoes as well. Not sure if you're going to take them home with you later, though. Oh,
You can't.
this side, are you ready?
Ah,
That is what we want.
yeah.
So let's just try the shall we, Marcia?
Yes, we shall.
Please welcome to the stage your host of the most, Marcia Hooper.
Oh, wow. It's like I'm somebody.
I know. Gosh,
Yeah.
Marcia's going to love this when she comes out. Let's see if Luke's all good for this. Please welcome to the stage, Luke Bird.
Yeah, I think they're
Marcia,
ready.
let's go get them.
Okay,
Okay, we're going to go
we'll
find
go get them.
Just the opening act, but thanks for having us, and the food was amazing.
Yeah, they look great.
Let's go find them.
Let's go. Where are they?
Where are they?
Hmm.
Oh, they're down the back. Yeah, hit that track, Mr. Sound. We'll get them out. Please welcome.
Where are they?
Oh, there they are. Please welcome to the stage the host of the most. She is the host of Lucky Dip on the Road alongside the one and only Birdman. He is 6'5", 196 centimeters of fortunate. Marcia is the host of the #1 iwi breakfast radio show in the country. Please welcome your host, Marcia Hooper.
Hey, hey, yes.
What you trying to do? Hey, 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 24 karat magic in the air. Hey, Toad. Hey. Hey, thank you,
Well done.
Mr. Sound.
Yeah, cut the sound.
Gosh, isn't it great when you love yourself so much you have your own entrance?
Kia ora. I didn't think they saw that coming.
Yeah.
No, we got
You know what, Marcia?
Yes.
Just because we're feeling the wairua and the kaha of the whare, we're going to do that all again. And this time, we're going to go down to our friends at Papakura High School.
Here we go. Yeah, the kura.
Oh, yeah. Let's go. Oh, no, you don't say the S, do you? It's let's go.
Yeah, that's how old we are, Luke, because you're putting on a Bruno Mars song like it's the latest song.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm
Oh,
not.
gosh. Lucky you didn't get me to put ABBA on, Marcia. Right, hit that track, Mr. Sound. Please welcome to the stage. She's the host of the most, the co-host of Lucky Dip on the Road, the #1 game show in New Zealand. He's the host of the #1 TV game show, Lucky Dip on the Road. They're both the hosts of the #1 iwi breakfast radio show in Aotearoa. Please welcome your host this afternoon, the one and only Marcia Hooper. Hey, what you trying to do? Hey, little get, oh, carrot magic in the air. So, hey, well, yeah.
Don't tell me we're going to do that again because I'm already out of breath. Okay, Ma.
Hey, thanks for coming today. That's your show. Thanks for the night. Goodbye, everybody.
Right.
Jokes. Oh, it's fabulous.
I thought so.
Let's get up here. I'm going to catch my
Let's get
breath.
up there. All right.
Oh my God.
Take the points. We're the MCs.
Hey, good. Well,
Just so you know.
Yeah, by
Yeah.
the way, we're your hostess of the mostest today. Oh, you're over there, Marcia. Oh, you, okay.
No, we'll go here.
Gosh, you can tell me you've got lots of money in the bank when you have 2 podiums. Greedy.
These ones work too. Oh, love it. I love it already.
You
All
take
the
over,
mics.
girl. I'm trying to catch my
Okay,
breath.
let's
Hold
look
my
at our housekeeping.
Hey, before we say that though, welcome.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to TupuToa Connect. Yes. TupuToa Connect. We love that growing Māori and Pacific leaders for a greater Aotearoa. Let's hear it for that, everybody.
Yes. Anyway,
Welcome.
If you didn't get it, welcome once, twice, thrice. We've done it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, housekeeping, it's really important we know what we're doing.
Yes.
Housekeeping rules is pretty simple, really. If you need to go for a poo or a wee,
Wee.
you know, everyone laughs at that, but actually you're all going to
Just
do
so
it.
like
The
I think they
toilets
know
are
what to do.
located, I think they're located out
the
there.
toilets are located over there. Look for the signage. Also, if in case of an emergency,
Yes.
we'd all like to congregate outside. Now, we don't want to get the two confused, okay? Mixed up. Don't do that. Don't go, fire, toilets, no, kaore. It's not going to get you very,
There's a fire. I'm taking a piss, kahore.
kaore.
Get
And
out.
don't do that outside either. So, toilets, there's some over there, there's some over there. And then our exits, of course, in case of emergency.
Yeah, see the little green men on the little running man on the door? That's not to remind us that cardio is important. It means
Cardio,
get out. If an
it's
emergency,
Koe anō.
out. Is it a fabulous
And
event here at the corner?
If an emergency, take your goodie bag.
Oh,
I've seen it. Take the goodie bag.
take the goodie
Yeah.
bag.
Yeah.
Now, did you know in that goodie bag is worth $1,000 worth of goodies?
Yeah, paki mai.
$1,000 worth of goodies in that goodie bag. Oh, look, she's checking it out. Yeah, have a good look.
Check it out. There's some
Yeah.
L'Oreal in there.
Yeah, L'Oreal's in there. We've got some Sharesies in there. Oh, yeah, there it is. I'd suggest take it out and take that goodie bag to the bank. $1,000 worth of goodies.
Hey, I'm using it.
I
Have you?
have.
Yeah. Mo, keep it tight. Keep it close. Because I'm liking it.
I'm liking it too.
All our
Let's just-
friends. Okay.
Let's just check off where we're doing. Oh, yes, now there are drinks on your table, the bottles of wine. Hey, just go for it. Open it up, pour a few, have a couple, have two. Drink from the bottle if you want. Just go hard.
Hey, we're the quarters. Have some decorum.
Marcia and I are from Northland. Now, we're known as stockpilers up there.
Stockpilers from way back.
Way back.
Way back. Right.
Oh,
No,
yeah, the goodie
as soon
bags
as
are
this
so
says
good.
housekeeping.
Well, another thing for housekeeping is, you know, if you've got a house, just keep it. Really, really important.
Yes.
Housekeeping, just keep it.
That's what I thought too. Well, no, we want to thank we're going to be thanking all our sponsors and our friends who put on this event today,
Oh,
third day. So we're going to be thanking them along the way. But tuatahi ake, we want to do a huge shout out. Thank you to Yellow. Hello. No.
Yellow, they are amazing. Friends and supporters of TupuToa and also roommates in their shared wharenui. Our
Yeah.
Yellow whānau are multi-channel marketing experts for our local Kiwi businesses and have contributed those nifty little screen cleaners to your goodie bags today. So check them out.
Yes.
Yellow
Fine.
also offer some fantastic digital marketing and bespoke products from Google and Google Maps. So get in there, have a look. Let's hear for Yellow, everybody.
Yes. Kia ora. Tēnā koutou Yellow. Or as we
listen.
like to say up the north, Yero.
Yero.
Yeah.
Yero. I'll see if you're a
Okay.
Northlander, you know.
Yeah, you get it. Hoi anō.
Marcia, kowai tērā tangata.
What are we still going on with the
Let's just
thank
keep going.
yous? We'd like to thank L'Oreal Group in Aotearoa. Yeah, you can check out your goodie bags for that. For over 110 years, the L'Oreal Group, the world's leading beauty player, has devoted itself to one thing only, fulfilling the beauty aspirations of consumers around the world. Our purpose, to create the beauty that moves the world. And something else when I flip the page. Defines our approach to beauty as inclusive, ethical, generous, and committed to social environmental sustainability. Thank you, L'Oreal, for all the amazing high-end goodies you have filled our bags with today. Check
Absolutely.
them out.
You've got some fragrance in there.
Yeah.
And I just Googled that fragrance before and it's worth $200 on the shelf.
Nice.
You got it for free today, everybody.
Kia ora.
Thank you so much, L'Oreal. Also, Merrington Print Management, Imprint, a proud and long-standing supporter of TupuToa. Merrington Print Management prints it all. Print on paper, signage, apparel, and all your promotional collateral and gift needs, combined with the incomparable design from Caudry Design. Everything and anything. And if you're still not sure, chances are they do. Just ask Don Merrington.
Nice.
Give a
And
little plug, Don.
just for a Pacific Trade Invest. Yes. They are the Pacific's leading trade and investment agency. Pacific Trade Invest works to improve the livelihoods of Pacific people by enabling decent work and economic growth in the Blue Pacific.
Oh, that's pretty flash. Let's hear it for them, everybody.
Well done. What's te wā?
Ai, kua tai te wā. There's a couple more sponsors we're going to get to later on during the day, but there's also fantastic Countdown and Foodstuffs are joining us on this fantastic Connect project. We'll give you more details about them later on with all the guest speakers, because you're going home with not one, but two amazing treats.
Love it.
Hey, once again, welcome to TupuToa Connect. It's about connecting, networking, Māori and Pacific leaders for a greater tomorrow, a greater Aotearoa, and just feel inspired being here myself, actually.
Kōrero.
I feel bloody beautiful. That's because I am. Are you ready for your first guest speaker? Oh, no, we've done this before. Are you ready for your first guest speaker?
I said, are you ready for your first guest speaker? Kia ora.
I love it when there's two podiums to share. Our first guest speaker is a senior social scientist at the Institute of Geological and Nuclear Science, GNS, and is doing research on monitoring and evaluating climate and natural disaster resilience investments, gender and climate change, climate-related mobility, and geothermal resource social licensing. Now, before moving to Aotearoa in 2021, our guest speaker taught human geography at the University of the South Pacific and led the development of policies and projects on climate vulnerability and adaptation assessments, planning and monitoring and evaluation with regional agencies and Pacific Island governments. Our guest speaker is Fijian and draws on her mother language and culture to understand and address climate and natural disaster-related challenges and the opportunities in the Pacific. Please make lots of noise. Actually, before we do that, once our guest speaker is finished, Marcy and I will be coming through the audience with Q&A. So feel free to ask a question. We'll come to you. Please make lots of noise. We've had the applause practice. Get the floor rumbling for the one, the only, our first guest speaker for today, Dr. Petrina Dumaru.
E ngā mana, e ngā reo, e ngā karanga, maha o te wā, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Ko koropa bai te maunga, ko rewa te awa, ko wulangi te iwi, ko honu te ika. Ko Petrina toku ingoa. No reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora, Jean Bulavinaka. I'm Petrina, I've been introduced to you, and I'm here representing GNS Science. I moved to Australia, I'm sorry, to New Zealand 2 years ago. I used to study in Australia, sorry. So I have been asked to speak to you, to talk with you about climate change and sustainability. And I will be drawing on my work experience for having worked in the Pacific Islands for about 20 years, climate change and sustainable development, and the last 2.5 years here. So my work has focused specifically on enabling participatory and inclusive processes in climate change adaptation planning and sustainable development planning. So that means I have worked at local community level with natural resource management and community-based resource management. A lot of that has been in Fiji. I also worked at the policy level, and I worked at the university as well as a teacher, but spent quite a bit of time more on applied research. So I'm going to be talking to you about climate change and sustainability, but more with the focus on, sorry, I haven't got my, my slide was, sorry, can I have some help here, please? Yes, that slide was supposed to be up when I introduced myself. So I'll be talking to you about climate change and sustainability, but I'll be looking more from an indigenous approach. As I mentioned to you, I worked in the Pacific, and in the Pacific Island countries, I know New Zealand is a Pacific country too, but in the Pacific Islands, it's quite different from here. And if you want to do natural resource management, or you have to work through traditional and customary processes. And so the work that I've done in setting up marine protected areas in Fiji, as well as talking about and try to change policies around environment and prepare for the changing climate, or, we're already in there already. So it requires to work from an indigenous approach to understand the language, to be able to speak in that language and talk with policy and community about it, about those things. So I have three talking points today, which I will try and, my apologies, I have to talk to you about GNS. Okay, so I work for GNS, and there is over 300 staff of GNS in Auckland, Wellington, Dunedin, as well as Wairake, where we have a big office there as well. And we work on geoscience and in the areas of natural and climate hazards and community and societal responses to those hazards. I mentioned that I worked as a social scientist. Okay, those are the 4 areas of science that GNS works in. And I am there as a social scientist. We work within the Vision Matauranga principles and promote that in our work. And also we have a social science team that does the sort of thing that I have just explained to you. What I thought I'd do is just give you, sorry. Okay, so I have 3 talking points, and I will just try to go through that very quickly. So one is that climate change and resilience. So I'm going to talk about climate change and resilience to sustain future well-being. I'm a bit distracted about, is there another? Okay. Okay. All right. So the environment is changing, and we experience climate change and in different ways, but most of all, that change is experienced through cyclones, intense rainfall, and drought. That's just to name a few. And then with sea level rise, it increases the chances of coastal hazards. In the Pacific, we've been experiencing this, and we've started to develop national adaptation plans from 15 years ago, 20 even, and working on climate change policies. And it's great to be here in New Zealand and also observe how the national adaptation plan has developed here in New Zealand. I think climate change really became real earlier this year, I think, for some of you, especially in Tamaki Makaurau. It is quite an experience to go through that. It is harrowing, but it also helps us in a journey to try to think collectively on how we're going to respond to it. In Fiji, we had never experienced Category 5 cyclones. What you experienced here in Gabriel, that's a Category 3. We experienced it for the first time in 2016, and no one alive had experienced something like that. And that was supposed to be a 1 in every 100-year event, but we got it again in 2020. So it's changing. Some of you may not know the difference because of your age, but those of us who've been around a bit longer see it. And so how do we come together and think about the things that we need to do to be able to maintain our well-being now and in the future? And so as you experience all this, sorry. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so usually when climate change effects are talked about, it's the infrastructure, it's the buildings, it's the landslides, and yes, these are very significant events, but we experience it personally. So it has psychological impacts. There's things that you can't do. You can't access health services, you can't access education, food, water, and all of those things. And so that affects your well-being, and so and family, and yeah, so that's sort of what I was trying to share with you. And the word resilience, it can be quite loaded. I think there has been some negative response to it because, oh, you know, resilience, but really it's how you define resilience. And sorry. And so in this context, when we talk about resilience, it's about adapting to the changes that we're going to have to go through. And it's not just the changing environment, it's also the change that we're going to have to work together on reducing fuel emissions or reducing carbon emissions. And so that requires an adaptation. And so your national adaptation plan has specifically spelled that out, that it's an adaptation to the changing environment, but also an adaptation to the way we're going to have to change how we travel and how we live, because, and that will be the test of our resilience. There's a lot going on here, but there's a lot been going on around climate change in the Pacific. There are countries that are actually thinking about and concerned about their existence in the future. And you come from different parts of the Pacific as well. You're here, some of you have been here for a long time, and some of you have just arrived like me. We know that whenever there's a cyclone back at home, everybody has to rally around to support our family. Sometimes some have to come here and then go back, or sometimes, you know, and our villages and our communities are also able to be there, to be able to function and to continue, because we are also here sending money back to. So that's the kind of reality that we have. And to remember that this is only going to intensify in the future. I was thinking about, now that the cyclones are here and it's happened in Tamaki Makaurau, it was a bit, I was in Fiji, I left on that day, and yeah, and so I wasn't here. And so it was just interesting for us to be back in Fiji and back in the Pacific, and to see you experiencing the stuff that we experience in this changing climate. And so it's an event that I think we have to think about and talk about together. So when I talk about indigenous approaches to adapting climate change, I'm referring to how we deal and talk with people in communities, in provincial and island councils and governments, at national government as well. And what kind of perspective do we bring in to these discussions? And I focus on Pacifica and Maori because I'm a Pacifica Fijian myself. I speak Fijian and I've worked in the Fijian language. And when we talk about natural resource management and governance and relocation and moving, we have to talk about this in our mother language, because that's how there's a sense of ownership over that as well. I've worked in Kiribati and Tuvalu, and I've had the opportunity to work with great environmentalists and climate change practitioners there as well, because they know how to do that in their languages as well. I'm really encouraged to see in New Zealand, Aotearoa New Zealand, that is also encouraged to be able to learn and to have the resources to be able to have access to learning your language. So that's great. The other things that's important about indigenous approaches to climate change is that you have to work from where people are at. What are their current experiences on their daily lives, and how the changing environment and the changing climate is going to affect that. And that will be defined by your values, your culture, your aspirations as a people, as a community. And that's where the discussion around climate change needs to start. And sometimes it's in another language other than English, and that's how that's the indigenous approach that I'm referring to in addressing climate change. I'm going to go to my second talking point because I turned it off. Help. Okay. Sorry. Okay, I think I've, my second talking point was, so the need for indigenous model science. I think I've gone through that. I'm going to give some examples of the work that we're doing at GNS, as well, draw from past experience. So I've worked with the University of Auckland when I first arrived, and the aim was of this research that Auckland University led was to ask Pacifica youth on what they understand and how they perceive the term resilience, because it's talked about a lot. The aim of that was to to understand how young people view the term resilience so that you can incorporate that and use that to inform resilient building policies, projects and programs that's designed for Pacifica youth. We had 2 consultations, one in South Auckland and one in West Auckland. There were discussions there, and what's really interesting was that it was before the floods, the January floods. We had this in December. And when we talked about climate hazards and resilience in natural disasters, there was very little experience here with the youth. So it will be interesting to have that discussion again later. Those who made reference to experiencing hazards were drawing from the experience when they were in their home countries. The other project that I'm working on, also that's with the Pacifica Youth. The other project that I had worked on was in terms of exploring geothermal minerals to support Papakainga development. It's a very early project, but the idea is working towards just transitions and how Maori resource owners might be able to utilize the benefits of geothermal mineral resources in Papakainga development. Yeah, my apologies. I think I'm going to skip through these ones, but there is a methodology of climate risk and vulnerability assessment that we developed in the Pacific region, and we used to talk about the changing climate and in the context of relocation, and you call it managed retreat. That's a big topic here. It's not an easy topic, especially for in the Pacific, but I think it's being managed, that discussion is being managed in a quite productive way, a quite progressive way. And so when we had Cyclone Winston in 2016, there was a lot of coverage on and focus on Fiji in terms of relocation and how the Kiribati government had bought land in Fiji to be able to grow food and eventually probably to move to. But it's still a very sensitive topic for countries. And we use this methodology where we conducted in the Fijian language. We have Talanoa, and we talk about it, and we talk with the women, we talk with the men, and we talk with the youth, and we talk with all 13 villages on one island, because after the cyclone, it was suggested that 13 out of the 14 villages relocate upland. And so after having that discussion, we were able to come through discussion with the youth and the men, and they talked about their history, how they'd come there, and the migration within that island, a population of 4,000, they talked about their history, and then there was a sense of ownership. If we're going to move, this is how we're going to do it. And so we came up with a continuum of options, from staying to moving, and a discussion around when. It didn't have the specific date. It was more around a generational thing. But I think it's important when you talk about moving communities or relocation, especially with Indigenous communities, that there's some sensitivity around it, and it will come. But it's something that a process that needs to be owned, and an appreciation that sometimes some communities or some people will want to stay where they are, and figure out how they can do that as well. And my third and final point is a question or possibilities around a well-being approach to monitoring and evaluating resilience investments. Last year, I worked with a great team at GNS on the National Seismic Hazards Model. It measures and models the intensity and shakes of earthquakes and location. And we are going through a process. One thing I've been most excited about in coming to Aotearoa is that the Treasury has made a shift from a GDP towards a well-being approach to policy and budgeting. And it's really exciting for someone like me because there's one other country in the Pacific, Vanuatu, has done that as well. It's a bold move, but it's very holistic. And so now we're in the position with the policy on science and research. We have to connect our science and the work that we do on how does it actually improve the well-being of New Zealanders, Aotearoa New Zealanders. So I've worked with NSHM in trying to develop a well-being impact assessment framework for the National Seismic Hazards Model. And we're applying that in adaptation projects, processes that are happening regionally and at community level. And very much so, I'm coming in with that perspective and that experience that I've had in the Pacific, which I'm glad that is valued here as well. Nakawaka level, and I'm open to questions if you have that.
Beautiful, beautiful. There we go. Please make lots of noise for Dr. Petrina Dumaru. Oh, Dr. Petrina, stay there, stay there. We're going to do Q&A. Up you get, girl. Now, we had a little bit of technical difficulty there, but hey, the party is still happening. Anybody have a question? I'm going to go this end. Marcy will go this side.
Stay this side.
Anybody have a question for Dr. Petrina? And if you don't, I'm going to come to your table and you're going to find a question in your little plethora of awesomeness. I'm going to come over. Here we go. Over here. Table number 18. Up you get, buddy. Stand up. Don't be shy. Stand up. I want to know what your name is, what do you do, and your question. Hit it.
Malolele Minaka Vagalebo for your talk. Edwin Fihoko from the University of Otago. I'm very interested in Pacific climate change. And I know climate change is seen as a high-level concept. What's the terminology that is used in the community? And the second question is, what can Māori Pacific people here in Aotearoa do to support you in the region?
Fabulous question.
Malo, thank you for your kind words. I mentioned the language because it is a critical point of discussion around response to climate change. And it's really, in Fiji, we don't have a word for a natural disaster or resilience. And climate change, it took a whole long length of discussions over a long period of time to come to an agreement that we call it Rakivesau. So we don't have those concepts in our language. And so when we talk about resilience and we talk about climate change, we have to talk about it in Fijian with the communities. And when we do that, we find ourselves talking about existing problems, food, water, family, access to health. And then we can talk about how climate change affects that. And so that's why that we've taken that approach. And that's why we're looking more also at this, when we talk about human security, to enable people to live lives of dignity, that sort of state, which is very closely aligned to well-being. And so I know in Tonga, there's been some great work being done there, but it's going to be in the Tongan language, and I might just understand a little bit. But in terms of the kind of support, I think I've got friends in Otago University as well. And the University of Auckland, I've just mentioned, we're doing research together, still have contacts in the Pacific, and getting a lot of support from Connect Pacifica. But I'd be happy to connect with you after this. Thank you for your question.
Nice. Here's another question.
Vinaka Vakalevu, Dr. Petrina, Tara Falawa, kia ora. My name is Taki Richard. I'm with the Languages Unit at the Ministry for Pacific Peoples. It's really wonderful to hear how important Indigenous languages are in terms of an Indigenous approach to addressing climate change. One of the things that we're hearing in our work is climate change is a threat to Indigenous languages. I don't know, some of you might recall the speech from the Foreign Affairs Tuvalu Minister, Minister Kofi, around how important our Indigenous languages are to the physical land, Inwa. In your research, have you come across those themes, or do you have a view on how climate change might impact our Indigenous languages in the region? Naka.
Thank you so much for that question. That's a really good question. I probably should have had that as one of my talking points. I think they might have been referring to migration, because once you come out from the homeland, you start to speak less and you're around. But I notice here, it's really encouraging to see, because there's so much of different communities like that you're speaking that language in here, because your extended family is here as well. Most of mine are still in Fiji. But at the same time, when I was studying the climate mobility and having the discussions with the communities that were talking about that, I found that it's really important to preserve the languages, because there were so many words and different types of moving and identity and place that is in the Fijian language. And I know it'll be in the Tongan and the Samoan language that is not well captured in the English language. And so I think it's both ways, the loss of it, and what it has to contribute to climate change adaptation and resilience globally as well. So I think the languages are really important. That's why I make reference to it here. And yeah, thank you.
Right, we've got one more. Oh, we've got two more questions. One here with Marcia and one up the front. I'll come up to you, buddy. Marcia, over to you.
Hello, Doctor. The Pacific Island Forum released the Kainaki 2 Declaration a few years ago as a collective vision for the Pacific to unify our islands. When they went to international conferences, this vision wasn't well received by other international parties. What are your thoughts in regards to what our Pacific Island nations need to do to garner more respect and recognition on the international stage?
Thank you. Not sure if I'll be the best person to answer that question, but one thing I can tell from my own experience and from my own perspective, the more I travel beyond Fiji, especially even outside the region, I see how even more important it is for us to come together as one. But regionalism has had its challenges since it was conceptualized in English-speaking times. We visited each other, and there was lots of migration happening between then, and there was no borders. But we are where we are right now. And regionalism, there was a panel this week with the Pacific leaders who are talking about as well. It has its challenges. Being a Fijian and having worked in Fiji, where most of the regional organizations are, I feel that it has promising possibilities, but only if the countries are all in it together with the same idea and the same vision, and are willing to, just respect each other and work together in the processes we know. Yeah.
Beautiful. We've got our final question here on table number 6. Up you get, buddy.
Malole Soifua, Dr. Petrina, Talafalava. My name is David Maiafi from the Pacific Cooperation Foundation. Thank you for the presentation, the overview on climate change. I just wanted to ask you a question around one of your presentations. You talked about the Indigenous approach and the discussions you had in that Fijian village and that island with 14 villages, of which 13 had decided to move inland. But the move was not going to be instant. It's a generational thing. Could you explain more for those of us who don't understand that, the connection of the people to the whenua and that process of that movement around that, because that is all part of that whole Indigenous approach. What's that?
Thank you. I think the context which I was talking about was on one island. They all kind of part of one whenua, like an iwi sort of comparison. And so the discussion around moving or not was within your own land. But I found it interesting to delve into that discussion, because I just wanted, how about you bring that discussion to a higher scale? And one thing I found is that there's this concept, the land that you've left behind, but that doesn't really exist, I think. It's almost like a repurposing of land. Those who had decided, okay, this generation will stay here, but the next one will go. It was more like to move upland and uphill. And it's because the younger generation, they saw this as no, I don't want to have this in my lifetime. So I'm going to move uphill. And the older generation are so attached. They got everything that they want there. And they need there. So they decide to stay. But one thing that was interesting was that they didn't see that they were leaving that land behind. It was a repurposing of that. They still go there to fish, and they've set tambos there, tambo, yeah. And so it's not a land that you're leaving behind, it's there. And that's, you're going to be like support you. It might have, at one point it was where you got your place security, but as you move, it's your food security and it's your children's identity. And so that's what I found interesting in looking at localized migration and cross-border.
Beautiful people of Connect, please make lots of noise for the one, the only Dr. Patrina De Baru. We've practiced this before. Dr. Patrina De Baru. Beautiful work. All right, my newfound friends of pure imagination. Oh, Marcia, kia ora. That is right. Hey, look, what you don't know is there's a camera behind us at the middle there, and that is streaming right now across the Pacific. And a special mention goes to Pacific Corporation Foundation, PCF, with a uniquely independent Pacific lens. PCF focuses on strengthening the bonds that connect Aotearoa New Zealand with the Pacific moana. It provides platforms to uplift, amplify, inform, and equip Pacific peoples and communities spanning the breadth of Polynesia, Melanesia, and Micronesia. Thank you to Pacific Corporation Foundation for sponsoring today's live stream that 300 students right across the Pacific, 12 islands at the Pacific University of South Pacific campuses can watch right now. So all just turn around and wave.
Wave out.
Yeah. They are all there watching us, 300 people from across the Pacific. So thanks again. Please make lots of noise for Pacific Corporation Foundation.
Very good. Awesome. Now we're going to introduce our next part of the day, where we're going to have a tech panel. And so we'd like to introduce our facilitator, award-winning business and public sector leader. She is focused on deepening New Zealand's engagement with the Asia Pacific and improving outcomes for those with diverse cultures, abilities, and experiences. She holds senior leadership and governance roles across public, private, and non-for-profit sectors, and is a keynote speaker on Asia business, leadership and diversity, equity and inclusion. O mai rā te piki paki paki, please put your hands together for Zaina Jalil.
Na mihi, Marcia and Luke, for that very generous introduction. Kia koutou na tangata whenua, nā te whātua orakai, nei au ka mihi. O ti rā, e ngā mana, e ngā reo, e raurangatira mā, puri noa i te whare, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. It is my absolute pleasure to be facilitating our first panel of the day today, and I'd like to invite our panelists up on stage. Dan Walker, Global Co-Chair of Indigenous for Microsoft. Hamish Miles, Managing Director, Salesforce New Zealand. Dan. Suzanne Miller, Director of Growth Practices, Datacom. And we were also going to have Annie Lewin, the Head of Advocacy and Asia Pacific for Google, but unfortunately she is unwell. So that just means more time for questions for the three of you and more time for questions for you. Now, our event today is themed Connect. And in today's day and age, as we all know, technology plays an important role in connecting us all together. Locally, regionally, nationally and globally, as we know from our guests from the Pacific who are joining us virtually today. Technology permeates all aspects of our lives. You know, my teenagers might survive without food for a day, but they won't without Wi-Fi and their devices. And I'm sure people with children in the room can all relate to that. The tech sector is our second largest in terms of contribution to the economy. And it isn't just a sector that sort of sits on the side on its own. It's also a sector that enables and empowers every other aspect of our lives. So given it is so integral to our lives and our livelihoods, it is also concerning that this is a sector that's facing a skills shortage. And it's also concerning that while Māori make 17% of our population, they make only 4% of the tech sector. Pacific peoples make less than 3% of our tech sector. And that underrepresentation carries with it a whole range of intergenerational impacts. So our panel have a lot of insights in this space and are going to be sharing those with us. And I encourage you to think about your questions because we will have time to take a few questions at the end. But let me start by asking the three of you. You know, we've talked about the importance of tech. Everyone in this room knows and uses technology throughout the day, throughout their lives. But why does this matter? Why do our Māori and Pacific people need to embrace technology? And I might start with you, Dan.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Sure. E koro māu kui māru rangatira mā tēnā koutou katoa. A ki te kai waka moimiti, te pāpā o tēne, tēnā koe, mō tō karakia e wakaritenga i te arawata ki tō tātou nei. Matono te rangi, nō reira tēnā koe. Kia ora whānau, ko Dan Walker tuku ingoa. And yeah, great to be here. In terms of, you know, we know that from the space of tech, it's a great sector to be in. It's moving forward, it's pumping at the moment in terms of growth. But in terms of representation, we're not there. You know, we're still got a long way to go. And I always say a lack of representation always results in a lack of trust. So if we're not there, if we're not at that lower level, middle level, and top level, even at the board level, then there's also, we're not there to be able to advocate for things that are important to Māori and Pacifica. I always say that, yep, tech is good for Māori and Pacifica, but Māori and Pacifica are good for tech. And we need to make sure that our narratives are included in the newer technologies such as AI, which I know, you know, that's a big kōrero at the moment. But outside of that, the broader ecosystem of tech actually needs to have things like our values in there as well. We bring a lot to these spaces, and it's been acknowledged now. We are seeing the change. It's certainly come a long way since, you know, the first time I was in the sector. So I think that we're starting to see the momentum. We just need to push it harder and see change happen a bit quicker.
Thank you.
Kia ora, ko puki te moanga, ko Rakaya te awa, no mewhanau hao, ko Miles toko whānau, ko Hamish toko Ngoa. So you've worked out where I'm from. I can assure you, if you think Auckland's cold, where I'm from, when it gets above 0 at night, you open the doors, it's freezing. Why is tech important? I think Dan's touched on it. Tech is everywhere. Like, it's absolutely everywhere. If I remotely, and I can do this, and I sometimes do it for shits and giggles, I turn the Wi-Fi off home remotely, and it becomes, it becomes like The Walking Dead. People emerging out of bedrooms going, Wi-Fi. So, you know, tech is everywhere. You know, on phones, people got their phones here. It's how you do your banking. It's how you do shopping. We know that the younger generation don't even want to talk to people when they're online shopping. They just want to transact. It's only going to grow. And if I said to you, we're at 10% penetration of how the tech industry, how deep it's going to go, we might not even be at 10%. It's just going to get deeper and deeper. And there's so much opportunity. So why wouldn't you want to get involved? The other thing I would say is the tech industry is super young, right? Māori have been in this country for a couple of thousand years, right? We've been building houses, roads, bridges, railways, stuff, right? For hundreds of years. The tech industry is only 50 years old. So in that perspective, it's a baby, but it's fast and it moves and it changes all the time. So there's heaps of opportunity, but I'd also say that as I sit here about to turn 52, we have a saying in the industry, and I can say it, it's that it's been built by male, pale, and stale, right? And there's a lot of systems out there that are just shit, right? Did I say that? Can I say it? I've said it. So, so what I'd say is that when we actually collaborate, and we've got we work with Ngāpui up in the Bay, and they've developed a system for their iwi around health records and communicating with the iwi, and it's such a beautiful system, but they own it and they're design centric. And so Māori and Pacific have so much to offer to the tech industry to make it more relevant for our communities, make it more powerful, and make it more usable. That'd be another thing that'd be great, right? But so much to offer, and that's cool. And the last thing I'll say is the money in the tech industry is not minimum wage, right? So with working with TupuToa, I've seen graduates come out of that program who were earning $23 an hour, do a 20-week course, 10 weeks of training, 10 weeks of internship. I was speaking to one a couple of weeks ago, and she's on $100,000 a year now. She's gone from 2 days a week on $23 an hour to 5 days a week and I think 105 grand a year. It's a really good earner, and you can earn as you learn. And by the way, I come from Methven. I've got family that chase sheep, others that swing off hammers, change oil. These hands are never going to get dirty, I can assure you. So the tech industry is good for that.
Kia ora. Kia ora ana talofa bola vanaka. Ko Suze Mala tōku ingoa, ko Pukitapu te ingoa whānau. E huria noa Te Atiawa Taranaki whānui. So I'm from Taranaki. And Dan's quite happy about that. Look, it's really hard going last because these guys pretty much covered it off, but I think it's important for us because to Hamish's point, technology is pervasive in our lives, and for our kids and their kids, you guys, many of you in the room will grow up as digital natives, if you like. So you're very used to the technology that you use. And in many cases, that'll be being taken for granted by people because the things just work. But the reason the things work is because somebody's behind it, building it, designing it, creating it, coming up with the problems to solve. We really need, I think it's really important for us, to Dan's point, to have our Māori and Pacifica views at that table when we're designing what the future for our technology looks like. We've got something to offer. We've got a beautiful culture, which is around, the collective and whānau and how we work together and how we bring people together and how we preserve our culture and our language that only we can support and bring to the forefront.
Thanks, Suze. So we've talked about the why tech is important and why Māori and Pacific people should care about it. Let's talk about the how. So technology is often seen as this sort of really difficult subject, something for super bright, overachieving nerds and geeks. And with all due respect, and you're all incredibly accomplished people, I found your career journey is really interesting, and the pathway you took to get to these very senior leadership roles that you have in tech. Some of you were high school dropouts, some of you didn't study tech. You've had quite unconventional pathways to the top, and I think that might be of interest, not just to the young people in the room who sort of building their careers, but also, youth adjacent who might be thinking of other options. You've talked about it being a very well-paid sector. So could you maybe just share a bit more about, your journey and why it's important not to limit your potential? Maybe we start with you, Suze.
Sure. So my journey was I went to high school. I was okay. Spent a lot of time playing sport. And then I decided that I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at university, so I went and got a job. I happened to get a job as a receptionist in a tech company. And then a year into that job, somebody gave me the opportunity to train as a junior developer. So I took that role, and then I guess my career just went on from there. I did a few papers along the way. Funnily, at some point, I decided to try and do computer science. How many people have done computer science? It was super boring. So I only did one paper in that, and then I moved on, and then I did business management, also not my didn't really spin my wheels. Once you've been working, I think, for a while, it can be quite hard to go back to an academic view of the world in that space. And then I did anthropology, actually, which I loved. So yeah, that's my career so far.
Yeah, similar to Suze. I didn't even finish school. Probably went to the shittest school of anyone that's in this room.
Hey, I went to school in Lower Hutt.
I went to school in Methven.
Okay,
Yeah,
I don't even know where that is.
yeah, well, there you go, right? So, one day we're allowed to bring a sheep one day a year, Barbara. But no, I didn't like school. School didn't like me. There was no way I was going to go to university. The only way I could get out of a place like Methven was join the BNZ as a bank teller and hopefully get transferred to Ashburton after a few years. You laugh, but it's true, right? And yeah, so the tech industry is quite different. The first time I saw a computer, it was kind of love at first sight. And I know there's, like people see phones, you can see kids on iPads. I never let them go, right? So it was that sort of attraction that was magnetic and mutual for that poor Apple. But the tech industry isn't full of nerds on keyboards coding. In fact, that's a tiny amount of the industry. You think of, the Xbox and the PlayStation, you think about Avatar, the Way of Water. Look at the way that tech's used, sales, marketing, design, testing, training. It's one of the biggest industries in the world, and there's jobs everywhere, and you don't have to have a traditional pathway to get into it. And people, older people might tell you there's this thing called the corporate ladder. That's bollocks, right? It's more like going to the ball pit in a shopping mall where kids are running around with runny noses. So you get stuck in these ball pits and slides and ladders, and you go sideways and up and down, and there's nothing really traditional about it at all. If you do want to go to uni, enjoy it. It's a really good social experiment part of your life. It's a really good social part of your life. I've watched my kids go through, and I'm actually about to go give another one some more money because he's out now, out of university. But, you can do a 20-week course, and with partners like the wonderful TupuToa Anne and your team are amazing. Thank you. You can get skilled up in 10 weeks and then do a 10-week internship. And as I said it before, there's many pathways into the industry, and I worked in London for 8 years with it. I did 3 years in Melbourne. I've done a small amount of time in the States. Overrated. But there is plenty of opportunity, and it's super cool. And you're not bound by some traditional road.
Kia ora. So yeah, similar. Another high school dropout. Stay in school, whānau.
Stay in school.
Get an education.
Yeah, get an education, definitely. But education doesn't always have to be in school, and there's many and varied types of ways to get educated. And Microsoft has their own skilling platform. But for me personally, just at that particular time, it was probably a maturity thing as well. I dropped out of high school and fell into Dick Smith Electronics, which probably don't even know it's probably been gone before you're born. But yeah, I love the whole resistors, diodes, and breaking things apart and building stuff. So I got into that side of the tech thing and found that I loved it. And I remember selling my first computer. It was like $5,000. My first mobile phone, it was this massive brick thing that I sold. And yeah, just got into it through that way. Eventually became store manager, national sales manager of Dick Smith, and then national sales manager of Noel Leeming. And then when Samsung first opened their offices here, I became national sales manager of Samsung. So that was my sort of way into the tech sector. And yeah, eventually I did find myself back into education because I was hiring all these people with degrees, and I was like, man, I'm better than these fellas. I can do this, and really struggled. So that's why I say stay in school, because if you can do it when you're younger, trying to do it while you're working so hard, eh? But definitely the thing about tech as well, I would say, is just a continuous learning journey. You've got to stay on top of things. You've got to keep learning. Growth mindset, eh? It's something you've got to really love to learn, because it's changing all the time. It'll change. By this time next year, there'll be a whole bunch of new technologies driven by AI that we're going to have to learn about. So it's exciting as well. That's a really cool part of it.
Okay, so you've all talked about how fast-paced the industry is. It's young, but it's fast-paced. It's evolving all the time. You've talked about the different things that you've done with it, coding, different technologies. What do you see as some of the sort of the new trends, the new technologies that might be coming up that we should be looking out for, that we should, be hopeful about, but perhaps also be concerned about?
Okay, so this is an interesting one. If I roll the clock back just 10 years, there was this word called automation. There was mass hysteria that there would be thousands and thousands of jobs gone with automation. Well, that hasn't played out at all. In fact, there's more jobs. AI is the same, right? There will be more jobs. It just means that you can do more interesting things. Now, I'm just going to touch on AI because I know there's some students in the room at the back and they love open ChatGPT. So do I. It's good. That's where I got my notes for today. But seriously, AI is going to be a huge game changer for companies. And I can only really talk about it from that perspective. So I won't get into sort of regulation and those pieces. But AI will only do it what you let it do. So if I give you an example of not good, imagine if AI only ever looked at data from the justice system of New Zealand. I don't think it would form a really good view on society. In fact, it wouldn't. It's called toxicity or bias. And we talk about cultural bias. Well, guess what? An AI could form cultural bias by just looking at that data source. So there's a huge responsibility on the firms that get into it to make sure that there isn't this toxicity and that the grounding, you're going to hear this word a lot of times with AI, grounding of the data is fair and accurate and from the right sources. So the risk with open ChatGPT is goodness knows where it's getting it from, but it could be skewed quite easily. Right, you're nodding your head, right? We have the same conversations, right? We're in the same industry, totally. So, but it's also going to be really cool. So the beautiful thing is that let's just say you're a customer of One New Zealand, you can call them up and they'll know a lot more about you because the issue they have right now is their systems are old and clunky and they can't access the data. Once you can access the data, you can accelerate the learning of the AI and get better offerings to their people and their customers. And you can do it in many different ways. So I think there's a huge responsibility on the companies who are implementing it to do it in the right way. And there's a responsibility on government around regulation, which I'm sure they'll take years to come up with something sensible. If you're looking to get into government, great career, good pension. Slow moving. But there is, AI is pretty exciting. It's going to go, it won't be long now. In the couple of years, we'll have a friendly little avatar not far from us. Mine's going to be called Cortana. If you get that in the room. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, look, AI is probably what's top of mind for everybody, and the pace of of those advancements in that technology is pretty mind-blowing, actually, as to where we are today versus where we'll be in 6 months, in a year. I think, look, so I also won't get into the ethical side of that, because there's lots of good and bad use cases, and it's as exciting as it is terrifying in some ways. And we're all still working out how we're going to use it in the right way for what we need. There's a lot of people who are worried, to Hamish's point about, a whole lot of jobs going. So developers, we will no longer need developers anymore. That's just bullshit, actually. Developers have not been writing code from scratch for decades. AI is just maybe going to help accelerate the base, but we can't outsource empathy or the emotional intelligent piece. So there's still going to be a job for everybody who wants one. Well, and you've got to be good at something.
Yeah, just to echo what's been said. I think AI is coming strongly, and I would suggest, there's 3 areas that are really strong in tech. AI is one of them. So there's a lot of great learning you can put out there, get out there around that, and all of our rangatahi, please learn about that. The other one is cybersecurity, because that's again a very fast growing area globally as well as locally, and that's going to become more and more important as we become more connected through AI. And then just for us, it's understanding the way that cloud can be used for better. Cloud's just a platform. These technologies, they're just a tool. They're not the answer. Technology is not the answer. It's just a platform for us to be able to do better for our communities that we serve. So think about how things like cloud models can be used to be more efficient, be better connected to our whānau, do all of those kind of things that change the game up for us. How can we use technology to really solve some of these issues that we've got back home, our ahi kāroa, some of our marae that we have a disconnection with? How do we involve the 70% of Māori that are in Australia? All of these things that are big problems for our culture, our cultures. These are things that technology can definitely more and more be an answer for.
Thank you. And that's also interesting from the perspective of Dr. Petrina's conversation earlier, keynote around, climate change and the role of technology, or the role technology can play and is being used to play in that space now. Now, I'm sure you have lots of questions. So if we can have hands up, and we'll have our amazing MC.
Yes, you do. Hey,
you.
before we get into that though, can everyone just look at the fantastic screens? If you're in the middle, look at Zina's amazing hands. No. Oh, you come to an event like this and they're bougie when they have little barbed wire at the bottom of their pants. Zina, I am living. Oh yeah, zoom in, Mr. Cameraman. Zoom right in. As close as you can. Bring it in. Who rocks the party that rocks the party? Yeah, Zina rocks the party that rocks the party.
Yeah. She can put a
Zina, I know. I am living, girl. And can we
also, Luke, the panel was great.
Oh yeah, the panel. I'm getting there, Marcia. Can everyone just look at Dan? Oh, Dan. I don't know who you are, Dan, but if there's a snowstorm tonight, you're going on my tires.
Oh my gosh.
Check it out. Look at that smile. Look at that smile.
He's loving it.
That says to me you are earning a really good pay packet. Those teeth are amazing. But wait, there's more. Let's pan across.
Pan across
to the amazing pale male. Look at you.
Hey, we love a good blazer.
Hey, we love the blazer, Marcia.
Yeah.
And I've got one word. Zaddy. And then we go across. Now the pinstripe.
Hey.
Pinstripe
back.
That's right. You're a boss bitch when you win.
Wow.
when you're wearing a pinstripe. Yeah, I'm going to just do some unsing, and I want you to. The camera's on you. Someone's head. Oh, that's my head. There it is. The camera. There's my head. There's my head. I'm going to unce, and I want lady in the pinstripe to unce with me. So I want some good shoulder action. Thank you.
Oh, kia ora. It's all you guys with glasses. That's in me.
I just think that is a plethora, a buffet, a smorgasbord of amazingness. You too can be and will be part of this amazingness. We've got a question from table number 17. Let's hear it for 17, everybody. What's your name? What do you do? Who do you do? Go.
Kia ora tātou. Ko rāhui mo ka Brownlee tupu ingoa. Ki te taho tōku whaia, he uri ahau no raki ura, me kaitahu me tūhoi. Ki te taho tōku mātua, he uri ahau no Ngāti Ruanui, me Ngāpuhi, me Te Raroa. Kia ora tātou. Love the panel. Beautiful whakaaro. Kia ora whanaunga there, Dan. And I can't remember pinstripe as well. I like the taranaki side there. Yeah, so I guess
I'm Suze.
Suze, thanks, Suze. One of my personal whakaaros is accessibility. So I've had a bit of a kōrero with Dan about this in the past, but one of the real issues I see for Māori and Pacifica is actually access to technology. So myself, I started my degree without ever owning a laptop. Sorry, I do cybersecurity at KPMG. So I definitely, have that whakaaro of cybersecurity is one of the biggest spaces. That's something we really need to consider, especially from an AI point of view. But yeah, my whakaaro there for the panel would be, how do you see and how can we encourage more rangatahi to get into tech?
Great question. Look, a great question. And as for the pale comment, like my Māori friends from when I was in the military used to say I was translucent. I always thought to take your compliments, right? The pathways are really so important. At Salesforce, we've chosen to partner with TupuToa and a couple other firms, but and to invest in those programs to get people through, because I think last count, there's about 15,000 Salesforce jobs, it'd be more for Microsoft, 15,000 jobs in our ecosystem out there in the community, right? By 2026, which is just 3 years away, we're sort of forecasting that there's going to be 26,000 jobs. So there's going to be an uplift of another 11,000 jobs. And it's massive, eh? It's same for you, right? Something similar. And so we've got to open up as many pathways as possible. So we're investing in our partners like TupuToa to bring Māori and Pacific people into the industry, because quite frankly, the industry needs it. It really does. And so, on a 10-week course, earn as you learn, you can come out and then, be double min wage. But we've got to get to schools. We've got to, education is the key, right? And the other thing I think Dan touched on is micro training. We talk about degrees, macro training, 3 years of hardship. Not that I went, I imagine. But, there's so many courses you can do that are 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 10 weeks, 3 weeks, that you just keep on learning, and those pathways are open. And the onus is on the vendor industry, who we work for, to make those as easy for people as possible. And so to Anne and her team from TupuToa, you're bloody legends. Thank you.
Kia ora.
Oh, I just want to call out TupuToa too, sorry. Just around the micro-credentialing, we partner with them to create Heko. You got the poster boy here, Dylan, actually, one of our, stand up, bro. Yeah, this handsome fella here. Yeah, so that partner with them, that's around cybersecurity. Te Pukenga are the sort of enabler, but TupuToa are the front to connect in with community. So I just want to call out TupuToa as well in terms of that whole skilling piece, which is going to be key, bro, around accessibility.
Kia ora. All right, who do we have next? And what's your question?
Kia ora, ko taku bibi ingoa, no Korea aho. Hello, my name is Borbett Wilson. I work at the Asia New Zealand Foundation. And thank you, panelists here today. And then I think definitely we know that how important the technology is. But we talked, I think you mentioned ChatGPT, and then I'm sending young New Zealanders to Asia, and then now I'm getting a lot of applications, and I can see some of them actually use ChatGPT. because, you know, the language is a little bit different. But what I'm really worried about, how do we balance advanced technology in those learning? Because students will know that, you know, how this is easy. And sometimes this ChatGPT actually creates amazing cover letter, and then they actually get a job. And we don't really know they use ChatGPT, and then they say, no, I didn't. But, you know, so I'm just a little bit worried on that side, not just a ChatGPT, but how do we balance between actual learning and also the advanced technology? Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Look, yeah, so great question. And I'm not sure we've solved that yet. So, you know, in universities, you know, there's great technology that can go through and scan your work and work out what it might be plagiarism. You know, I imagine there'll be something similar for ChatGPT. We could probably ask ChatGPT what ChatGPT thinks. But look, these are some of the issues I think that are front of mind that we're all grappling with at the moment as an industry. So, you know, how do we unlock the goodness but then also be safe, and then also, you know, be ethical with this tech and other tech, machine learning and all the other things that are to come and evolve. So I don't know if someone has a better answer than that.
We get a lot of applications, and I see a lot of CVs and stuff. And I will say this about ChatGPT, it's a little bit boring, and you can tell when someone's using it or overusing it because it's quite consistently boring. And I mean that, and you can't, how do you differentiate yourself? Who are you as a person? How does ChatGPT know that? It doesn't. Right. So I'd be really conscious of putting your own personality onto a job application, because, you know, getting a degree is one thing, but people hire people. And are they interesting? And are they fun? And do you want to work with them? That can only come through your own authenticity. So bring your whole self in those applications.
All righty. I've just been given a little word in my ear. Final question from table number 18. Up you get. What's your name? What do you do? Who do you do? Go.
Kia ora tātou. He ere hau no Ngaiterangi, ko Rachel Tukaki Kingi tōku ingoa. I work for an organisation called the Centres of Asia Pacific Excellence. And thank you to the panel. I'm not really a techie person. How I resolve tech issues is hand it to call out to my moko or a teenager. But my question really is around what opportunities and accessibility might you be working on for people with disabilities? Yeah, especially low vision impaired. Yeah, I guess, is that enough?
Fantastic question. Brilliant.
Oh, kia ora hoa. There are many technologies happening globally, but also locally. Really, there's some amazing stuff happening with local tech companies in that space as well for you know, the vision impaired and some of our hard of hearing whānau as well. You know, and dyslexia is a big one too. In terms of how tech is being used, I look at Microsoft as an example, only one example, but they have a global strategy around accessibility, and it's a really strong focus for them around the usage of, you know, things like Office and Word and PowerPoint, which are pretty common things being used. That kind of stuff is now available through our accessibility tools, so you can get access to all of those for free as a part of the solution set. And but what I'm really excited about is some of the local stuff that's coming out by, you know, entrepreneurs, just people who are passionate about their community. We're seeing some really cool stuff happening in there too.
Yeah, Dan's hit the nail on the head there. There's a real onus on the vendor community, you know, the people that make software, they're called vendors for whatever reason, to come to the party and create these. And we're a company that is based on values, you know, trust, customer success, equality, diversity, and sustainabilities. But that equality means access to technology for absolutely everyone. I was at a conference with Anne last year in San Francisco, and she was on stage. And when Anne's on stage, she is an absolutely
force of human nature. And I don't think I've ever seen her come second in a race on a stage until this day when she was up with our dear friend who had a incredible visually impaired and needed great escort. And he was possibly the most intelligent person at that entire conference, which had 50,000 people there. He was incredible. And you were there, you remember it. He was amazing. But it really, people with those types of challenges haven't been well served by in the past with buildings, vehicles, home appliances, just the little things. And so technology can go a long way, and voice recognition to help in helping that. And so we're investing a truckload of money in trying to make all of our systems available for people who are visually impaired and have hearing challenges. So yeah, we're right in on board. And also the people with those types of challenges are one of the most underinvested from a grant perspective from the government. The grants for lots of other things, but not so much in that space. So any help you can provide for that too with fundraising is greatly received.
Oh, look, I think to echo these guys, and I would say some of the work that Microsoft in particular do in the space has really removed some of those barriers. I have a guy in my team who is legally blind, and because of technology, he is able to see, and he has a dog in the office most days, which is quite fun. But yeah, I think we've made great strides in that space, and I think we're really conscious about that. I think Hamish made a comment before about people. Like, for me, tech is a people business. It's not necessarily about the technology, it's about the people that we bring in and what they can offer. And actually the technology is just an enabler for that.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. You guys have done great work there.
Beautiful. Thank you, everybody. Let's hear it for our panel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I just put into my chat GPT. I express my sincere gratitude for your valuable time and expertise during our recent discussion on this complex subject. Thank you.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, please make lots of noise for our facilitators, Zinaj Jalil, Hamish Miles, Dan Walker, and Suzanne Miller.
Yes. Oh, it's like the music awards.
I know, and the nominees are.
All right. We just want to do a huge shout out to Sharesies.
Oh, absolutely.
Sharesies is a wealth development platform with the purpose of creating financial empowerment for everyone. Their vision is to give someone $5 and someone with $5 and someone with $5 million the same investment opportunities. Sharesies exists to make investing easy and accessible to all. They have over 500,000 investors using Sharesies in Aotearoa and Australia, and they're continuing to break down the barriers to investing for more Kiwis and Aussies so that they can create new ways to develop their wealth.
Love it.
Hopefully you all enjoy your investing experience with Sharesies with a $20 kickstart in your goodie bags. Yeah, e mihi ana rā tēnā koutou Sharesies.
That's right. That $20 in your gift bag, everyone. Everyone gets a $20 kickstart. That can turn into $2,000 by next week. $2 million in a year. Just saying. Figuratively speaking.
Yeah. Did you read that off ChatGPT?
I did, actually. I do, yeah. Hey, ChatGPT, tell me everything. But $20 kickstart, boom, shakalaka. Let's hear it once again for the fantastic team at Sharesies. Yeah. Hey, we've done this applaud practice all morning. Sharesies! All right, my new little found friends of educational amazingness. We're ready for our next panel discussion. Our facilitator is a purpose-led leader with a motivational style, a reputation for building and enlisting champions and maximizing collective impact of networks in service of building a nation where everyone flourishes and where women and girls will thrive. Please make lots of noise for our facilitator for the next session, Agnes Nader!
Kia ora koutou katoa. I'm going to start at the podium, but I just want to say to Luke and Marcia, it does feel like the awards night. I don't think Cordis has ever experienced anything like this. And I do want to take that note. Look, for many of us that are a lot older than most of you in the room, we used to come to events here 5, 6 years and longer ago, and know, much respect as I say this, the room was filled with lots of people who didn't look like us. So it was really cool to be here with a room full of people who look like us. Come wait. Look, all you need to note about me is I come from the centre of the universe, the Hukianga. Come wait, enough we. And if you come from anywhere else, well, hey, come wait. Look, on a really serious note, when I got the invite, you kind of go, oh, look, I've got lots on. But look, it's always been my privilege, and we're called here today in service of you as young Māori and young Pacifica, and it is a privilege to be here. So I'm going to sit on the chair now, and we're going to do our thing. And I'll pretend.
Kia ora.
Going now. Okay, talking about tech, I just want to say one comment about the ChatGPT. I'll tell you what it's really great for is board minutes. When you have a board meeting that goes on for 3 hours, when you can put it through that little thing, it is an amazing thing. Look, we're going to have a kōrero about this thing called leadership. But before I start that, what I want to talk about is the leadership of TupuToa. I can still remember however many years ago, we were all kind of in a room talking about, the conversation was being led by people like Dame Jenny. We have got to do something for Māori and Pacifica youth. And I look at where we are today. So to all of those that have been on the journey with TupuToa, and to you, Anne, for your leadership here and now, ka pai. All right. So we're going to start off with a question, and I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago and someone used it, so I'll just plagiarize it. It was pretty good. So the idea, I suppose what I want to ask each of you to share is, what has been your greatest either challenge or opportunity in terms of a leader or leadership? And look, you can't go past Hayley's suit. What is not to love about that? So Hayley, and I'll let them kind of share who they are in the way that they would like to share with you. Ka pai, Hayley.
Cool. Tēnā tātou, kua huhui mai ki runga i te kaupapa o te rā. Huri tēnei no Ngāti Maniapoto, te aitanga hauti me Ngāti Pāhauira. Ko Hayley ahau. Kia ora everybody, my name is Hayley. I am mum to Waiaria. I had Waiaria when I was 17. And so like Matua Dan said, make sure you stay in school. My build to that is stay tapu, not hapu. And we can put that on a t-shirt, everybody, remember? Tapu, not hapu. But I am the director of Māori strategy at Fonterra. I've been there about 8 years. I think May is in the room. May is our business graduate, so tēnā koe May. I will code your ticket on my costing tar. But so that's the sort of, I guess, a kind of language you use when you're in these corporates. Fonterra, of course, is a big organisation that does some cool things, and we also need to acknowledge the sort of nature of our industry. Back to Agnes's question, because otherwise I'll forget. 2 things. I'll quickly go to, I've got a legal background, and when I graduated from university, of course, I was looking for clients, and my whānau graciously said, you know, baby, we'll be your first clients. It was a Māori land court case, so I really studied, I really got ready and knew the facts of the case, got to the court case, and when you stand up in the court, all lawyers will say, may it please the court, and then you introduce yourself. And so I said, may please the court, Council's name is, and I forgot my name. And 2 things happened. I was very lucky because the judge of the day had been my university lecturer, and she said, yes, Miss Putaranui. And I said, oh my God, that's my name. The second thing that happened is that my relations, who had graciously given me their case, my uncle behind me said, "See, I told you we should have got a Pākehā lawyer." And I was like, excuse me? So I guess the lesson out of that one, and it was a very fast and hard lesson, is one, don't work for your relations because they're savage. Two, learn the very basic things. And it was a big, massive lesson for me because, again, I was so over-indexed on learning the facts and learning all the very important things. But I think my learning from that is I forgot my humility and even to the very basic things. So that was my first lesson. I think the other opportunity for me as well, and probably as you go through, is I want all of you to take one thing away. Well, a whole lot of things. These other people obviously talking, not just me. Having said that, there can only be one Beyonce in this panel. I haven't even had a wine yet. Wait till we have a wine. Is we need all of you to play the long game. So what I'm feeling and what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing and what I'm counseling and supporting is lots of beautiful brown people who are getting into organizations. We've got the pipeline SaaS, TupuToa's humming, and selling us all to everybody. But it gets hard. And I see after 6 months when our karakia hasn't working and it's landing on deaf ears and we're wanting to only be one-trick ponies, I want us to be 10-trick ponies, and that takes time. So I want to see a bit of grit. I want to see a bit of resilience. I just want you to turn up. That's not to deny the organizations that we're in have not been crafted by us. But you must absolutely believe that they are made for us right up to the top. But it takes time. So you just have to stay the course. And all of us and everyone else that's old in this room are here because we are clearing the pathways for you to do that. So trust that. And as I said right at the start, te tapu, not hapu. Tēnā koutou.
Oh, ka pai, Beyonce. Beautiful, beautiful. Hey, just before I let kind of Ed share his story, I remember, many years ago, oh God, we're old again. Sorry. All right. And I read this article about this fella and he was, kind of tricking out people in Dubai. And it was this Māori fella. I thought, oh man, he must be too much. So Ed, let you share your story.
Tēnā tātou. Kua mihi a ngā mihi ki a koe te pāpa o Ngāti Whātua, pāpa o tēne, nei rā te ngā koe whakaute mihi kauatuana ki a koe. Tātou hoki kua karapene mai raro i te tuanui o tēnei. Whare e ki nei, tēnā tātou. Salam alaikum, kia ora, malo lelei, bula vanaka, whakalofalahi atu, greetings, and Agnes is right. I've spent a third of my life living abroad. Living in Dubai, actually. I arrived there where camels used to walk up the main highway or motorway, so they called it, and I left when it was a 14-lane motorway. So I saw not only a culture develop, expand, but also, as Hayley has said, what does the future look like for the next generation? More importantly, I come from the jewel of Aotearoa, Tokomaru Bay, which just so hikurangi te maunga waiapu te awa, Ngāti Porou te iwi. Had I thought about that, obviously 30 years ago, that was going to be a part of my world where I would ride a horse to school, where I could actually milk a cow as part of my classroom. And here I am now, 30 years later, etc., working for a government or Crown agency. Education New Zealand Manapo ki te ao looks at socio-economic and cultural, taking not only Aotearoa services, education services abroad, but also bringing international students as part as working collectively towards the fabric of Aotearoa New Zealand. Amazing, simply because, as Hayley has mentioned, we are all in it for the long game. But no one teaches you that. You actually have to fall and stumble and get a graze and someone picks you up, moves you forward. I actually took my dad back to university when he was 60 years old. And you're talking about a shepherd, a person who would drive stock throughout the East Coast, left school at 15, had no desire to ever want to go back into a mainstream or orthodox university. And yet at 60, I said to him, let's go back to university, because I hated it. And so we went in as twins and we both graduated at the same time. So if I'm looking at what you can achieve, not just by yourself, but with the collective, and I must say to TupuToa, the word that sticks on my mind that resonates here is connect. How do you hono? Not just only at any level throughout, culturally, internationally. How do you bring the special and unique gifts and talents that you have and take that to the world? And more importantly, not just take it. How do you share it, shake it, bake it, rake it, and enjoy every ounce of flavor that you have to share, not just as rangatahi, but actually as Māori in Pacific Island and as Aotearoa. Kia ora.
Ka pai, Ed, yeah, shake it, bake it, take it. Awesome, awesome. We'll have more about that later. And obviously Pink is in the house today. I didn't get the memo, so sorry. Aroha mai, next time. Tracy, why don't you share yours?
Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Tracy Taylor, aho. I tupu aki o ki Waikato. Ki tamaki aho I noho ana. Ko Sebastian Tokotama. Nō reira, kia ora. Hi everyone, so I'm Tracy and I'm born and bred in Papakura. So some of my whānau over there. I went to Roseville College though, so apologies for that. And I remember the rivalry even then, 100 years ago. I think one of the things I often think about is I come from a big whānau. So my dad had 9 brothers and 3 sisters. And so I've got hundreds of cousins and aunties and uncles. And I loved that, that inclusivity, that love that big whānaus bring. And that was really important to me. I was the only person really in my whānau that was interested in education and loved it. And I did go to university, but while I was working, I went part-time so that I could pay for it and got myself a degree. But that was because I loved it and I wanted to. And I do want to say, I don't think it's important necessarily to have a degree to be successful, but curiosity and learning is something that is really important no matter what. I think one of the things, if I think about Agnes's question, is one thing that took me a long time was to find my voice and to actually find the courage to use my voice. So I remember even as a young woman thinking really differently about things throughout my school life. And this often had me on the outside of groups or situations because I would look at it through a different lens. And this became really noticeable to me when I started in the workplace. So I guess that feeling of thinking differently was quite familiar to me. And then when I went overseas, I worked overseas for 10 years, and my background is people and culture. So I was exposed to many different things across many different countries, but to me, it all came back to the same thing, that we're all just humans trying to do well. And when we do that together and when we connect, that's where our power is. So, you know, eventually it took me a long time. I'm in my 50s, coming up this year. And, you know, it's taken me a long time to find my voice, to be able to sit in that meeting and be the only one who goes, nah, I don't think that's the right thing to do, or to really stand in my values around something that I don't agree with or that is actually not right for people. So in my leadership roles, I've really looked at, you'll get told all the time that, you need to understand the numbers and you need to think about that commercially. The most commercial way you can think about anything in leadership is through a lens of people. And that's where I've really found my voice lately. And I think is something that I would really encourage you to consider, even though you get the theory behind you and you do whatever you do in terms of what interests you education wise, always think about that. How do you look at it through the lens of the humans that are involved? And they are all the same humans, no matter whether they are your people that you are leading, your communities, your partners, your customers, your suppliers. And that's something that I've always tried to do, is create that model where everybody does well, the circular model. It is really commercial. And if you're thinking that way already, you're on the right track.
Why, Tracy? It's an interesting thing, this, it's like the voice and getting to the table. I'm not sure about getting to whatever table, but it's interesting. And a couple of experiences from me is I'm an introvert naturally. And so I do speak up, but I'm really conscious of being myself. So I don't yell, I don't speak across people. That's not something we've kind of been taught. And I was told once I should speak up a bit louder. I suggested that maybe they should speak a bit quieter. Anyway, look, Leo, it's really lovely to see you. It's been a long time. And, I've known Leo through a range of things, but particularly TupuToa. At one point, we decided TupuToa would be housed at AUT. I didn't get any permission, got a lot of trouble, but never mind. But anyway, Leo, you share your story.
Kia ora. Tēnā koutou katoa, malolele, and good afternoon. Maybe I'll share a little bit of my own story and introduce myself that way, and maybe some thoughts and lessons for us to think about. So I migrated, my family and I migrated from Tonga when I was 6 years old. And we arrived in New Zealand and I couldn't speak a word of English and I couldn't read any English. And for most of my life in lots of different environments, I've become used to being the only brown face in the room, right? The little primary school I went to, there were a couple of Māori kids. There was one other Samoan, and of course I'm the fob at the school, right? Because I'm fresh off the boat. The others can speak English. They know what's going on, and how I dealt and felt with that, I think affected a lot of my growth, my development, my personality, and actually how I went into leadership. The same thing happened at university. A class of 300 at the accounting class at Auckland Uni. There might have been 4 or 5 of us, Pacific. And I couldn't tell who the Māoris in the room were. And then I graduated and then went on to PwC. And I don't think I saw a brown face for a few years. And how do you deal with that? When today, a lot of what TupuToa and what we're trying to do is, as we all know, is we're trying to get everybody to bring their whole selves to work, right? To be yourself at work. But if you turn up every day and you don't see anyone else like you, how do you deal with that, right? And, it's a bit goes to your story, Hayley, about, being resilient but of course, one of the answers is knowing who you are, and knowing where you're from and knowing what roots you, knowing what your values are. And I guess that's the advantage, I think, that Māori and Pacific have, is we have the advantage of the culture and the values that help define us, right? And that's what you carry, right? And it's interesting because it was only when I transferred overseas in the PwC world and I went to London, and in that space where you see lots of people from lots of different ethnicities, and they are all proud of who they are. They all know who they are, and they all exist in that ecosystem. And what I learned was, because I had walked different worlds, I could adjust and walk in that world, right? And I worked in London for a couple of years. I went and worked in Hungary for 2.5 years. I've worked in Singapore, Canada, Jakarta. And what I know is I can go into those environments and it's kind of like a cultural intelligence, but I would, my Tongan mates will not call me culturally intelligent. In fact, most of them wouldn't even call me very Tongan, but that's amongst the family inside. But when you have exposure to that, and that's what we have, right? Everyone in this room has got that exposure and that ability, that innate ability. And if you nurture it and grow it, it can become your weapon. So thank you.
Let's just call Leo our trip advisor. He's been everywhere. Nice work. Hey, look, we haven't got a lot of time, but I do want to kind of do some things. Hayley and I briefly kind of she said to me, are you going to ask me what I tell my 20-something? So Hayley, what would you tell your 20-something? It wasn't that long ago either, folks. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, I had asked this question, been asked this question before, so I was trying to think of, the first thing that comes to mind that goes like this. My 17-year-old self, I wish I could say this. See those Maori boys over there? Look the other way. Look at the Pākehās. Look at the Asians. Look the other way, Hayley. Look the other way. Don't go to that party. I think it's again back to that theme around just trusting time, trusting the course, play the long game. Don't be in a rush. This will probably make most of you screech with fear. But when I turned 40, there was like this internal breath of relief, because you learn things in your 20s, you typically get them wrong. At the end of your 20s, you get another go when you're 30. And then when you get to 40s, 41, for anyone wondering, doing the maths, it's like the gift of everything that you've just learned, because everything else, and part of that too, right within your puku, is your Māoriness or your Pacificaness, of your islandness, but it's absolutely brown code. And it makes you realize, not to be confused with code brown, because that's totally something different, but brown code, you realize actually your license to have a view and what that view is so deeper than actually measured in time from where you've just come from. So I think that would be the advice I would give myself, Agnes, to stay the course. Don't be in a rush to be everything to everyone, because actually the gift of time is on the other side to yourself. And it's, that thing that everyone's favorite uncle says, Uncle Bob, Marley, of course, around emancipation. You get to emancipate your mind, and there is a real gift and power in that we all collectively share, because we're not trying to be something that has never been intended for us or has been scripted in other people's minds for us. That would be mine. Just trust. And it is a beautiful, beautiful experience learning.
Oh, boy, Hayley. Just in terms of that, take a breath, as Hayley said, you take a breath because you see much more. And it's really important that you experience, whether that's your career or anything else, but you've got to experience, you've got to live for it, because that's the most important thing. And my observation is that, if you do that, you take 10 steps instead of 1, because you've really built into that experience. So kia ora, Hayley. Ed, I suppose I'm really interested. We've talked about your time in Dubai, your time back, and you're still going backwards and forwards. What is it that you kind of, from that global perspective, what is it that we should share with our young people here today?
I was just saying to Hayley, she should have been thinking tapu and not hapu. But anyway, that's an internal little joke. I guess for me, what we have as a people is based on people-to-people connectivity and relationships, but also the importance of people to place. The way we come from the land. We relate to it. Genealogy goes back to it. So when you do travel the world and somewhere, i.e. the Middle East, what I loved about it was the fact that it wasn't what made me different to an Emirati. I went straight there and looked, what are the similarities that we have through the cultural lens, i.e. they hongi. If you go to Saudi Arabia, you won't know whether it's 2 hongi, 3 hongi, same with Qatar, same with Oman. They also cook their kai in the sand. So straight away, they sing their poetry with bamboo rako or toko or sticks, as we call them, talking sticks. So all that education I had was, oh, what's the difference between A and B? Actually ended up being, flipping it on its head, what were the similarities which brought us a lot closer to be able to share our stories? And the other thing is, because of that authenticity and indigenous to indigenous, it's not about the transaction. It's about building that trust, the relationships that we have. Transaction is the last cab off the rank. It'll take longer, but I tell you what, that transition is well worth the wait, because that'll be the quick part of the relationship or building pono, trust. But also, what do you go there with as an individual who's come away from their family, from their hapu, from their iwi? You know, to hono, you must have something to give. It's about reciprocity in our cultures, things that we take for granted, things that we are now weaving into our agencies or work. As Leo said, it is what we are, where we're from. How do you take that with you and then utilize that on a global stage and being able to be comfortable in your own persona or your own, in you as individuals? And if you're not, talk to someone. Talk to a cousin, a friend, an auntie, an uncle, your elders. Not at those Māori parties you're going to though, Hayley, I might get in trouble. Reach out, because there are people there who have also traveled, but it's all about you and who you take with you, i.e. those that have gone before, those that are with you now, and definitely those that come from the future.
Interesting, that connectedness. I think as a people, Māori and Pacifica, what we're really good and we're crafted as is all of us can connect heads. That's kind of something that we do every day, but it's that connecting heart. And it is about the place, you know, and this idea, people talk about networking or I don't know, whatever it's called, but you know, the thing is you just find some common ground, whether that's about rugby, whether that's around IT, but it is that connectedness about heart. Tracy, look, you know, there's seasons for leadership. And so I'm really interested in your whakaaro, your thoughts around the season you're in terms of your leadership.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that as Ed and Hayley were talking. I think it's really important to decide who you want to be as a leader and be really grounded in that no matter what is going on around you, because within business, within community, things change, things move. One of the things that I've already sort of grounded myself in my leadership is that it's very much about love for me. And love means lots of different things, but I talk about it in the context of love is tough, but love is important. And that is something that if you, I think, look through that lens when you are leading people, will always guide you the right way. And for me, it's always important also to be vulnerable and human as a leader. So your life experiences will definitely feed into your work experiences. They're not two separate things. So, you know, I had my mother die when I was very young after a long battle with cancer. That was a big thing for me that I learned so much from and got so much growth from. Then I experienced a divorce. I'm a single parent of an 8-year-old son. That was another thing that was a really big growth phase for me. And then I think within businesses, different things happen for different reasons. But the grounding piece for me is always, who do I want to be in this situation and how am I going to navigate that? And that will look different for each of you, but finding that style, finding that path helps you through the different seasons of things, because actually, whilst titles are one thing, and there's, definitely mana in titles, but it's actually more about who are you within what you're trying to do and what is your purpose within that role. Because if you are just aiming for the title, or you're just aiming for the work or the skills or the capability, it's almost not enough to carry you through. So that's something I'd really encourage everybody. And if you think about that early in your career, it'll give you a head start on things if being a leader is, where you want to be.
And I think we've raised that point before, that idea about endurance, and it's a journey, and so you do need to kind of pace yourself. Leo, look, you've had some big gigs, and I can't imagine it would have been like when you first went to PwC and to be the only person that looked like you, and then continue to kind of do that. I suppose what I'm really curious about, Leo, is what is it that you see, if you were to imagine what an organization like PwC or Frontier or any others would look like in the future, and what is it that our young people could do, but what could we all kind of do to help that reimagine? Big question. Let's see if the man's got an answer.
Yeah, that's a big question. I guess you can make it bigger, right? And it goes to what is the Aotearoa that we want to build, right? Because that in my mind goes back down to then what are our big organizations in this country are trying to build, right? So we're trying to build, in my mind, we're trying to build a society that we'll use the words we're used to, inclusive, right? But it's also a more caring society, a more kind society, a purposeful society, a society that has some roots for its values and how it behaves, and how do we behave towards each other, and how do we create space for each other. You talk about having a voice at the table and sharing your voice. More often than not, what I see is it's actually people not providing the space for those around the table to speak, right? We need to provide the space for each of us to stand into, to grow into, and to realize our aspirations. So that's my reimagination. How's that?
Oh, wise counsel. You should be on one of those TV shows. They ask those questions and you give that just really profound answer. Anyway, look, I think we need to go to Q&A. Where's our MCs?
Let's go. I'm already willing and able to do this. Before we get into the Q&A, remember everybody at home across the Pacific, 12 islands, there are 300 students watching right now. So if the panel can give a wave to the camera. And we may have some questions from them online. So Flo will let me know if they do come through. So if you are listening online, send the questions through. I will get them to answer them for you. But I have to just pay tribute to Hayley. Look, Mr. Cameraman, can we zoom in on this amazing pink outfit? Oh, look at it. And also the little leopard print shoe. I just want to pay homage to the poor flamingos that gave up and sacrificed their, not fluff, their skin for this amazing pair of trousers. Beautiful. Love it, Hayley. Fabulous. And in some places in the country, it's okay to be hapu, not tapu. You never know these days. Right, let's get around the floor, everybody. Who would like to ask a question? Anyone? Look, don't jump off your seat. Right here, table number 14, everybody. Up you get, stand up. Goodness me, aren't you a strapping hunk of spunk? What's your name? What do you do? Who do you do? Go.
For Isaac Moringa Tukuingoa, with the Microsoft whānau here. And so kia ora to the matua Dan, and kia ora to all the whānau who shared their wisdom and knowledge with us today. So I'm a sales manager for business applications across Australia and New Zealand for Microsoft. I've been at Microsoft for 3 years, started as an intern. So that's just a little bit about my mahi, and also the global chapter lead alongside my whangaunga Dan for Indigenous at Microsoft. My question was, so as we've been going through this transformational change within the commercial and public sectors in New Zealand, we're seeing a lot of early in career talent joining these organizations. And throughout the day, people have touched on this hierarchy where we are seeing leaders in these spaces where we previously haven't been, but how do we deal with advocacy fatigue when we are given a space at the table to speak, especially when early in career, we're at this bottleneck at the beginning stages of our career? How do we call out or have the confidence to address problems or issues we might see? And also to that, now I'm a urban Māori. I am from Hokianga actually, but I did grow up. I am a Westside Custom Boys, Henderson High School. So I, and also first in my whānau to pursue tertiary education and actually finish high school. So, so all these kind of barriers in life, I actually haven't seen them as barriers. They've always been good people who have seen potential in me and many others. And I try and give that same aroha and that same ladder to those who are coming through. But back to my question, I suppose, that advocacy fatigue, that being at a table being asked, you know, Isaac, what's your perspective? I don't necessarily have all of that tikanga, all of that cultural knowledge that others may assume because of, you know, my physical attributes, but also I have to tackle with that language. How do I speak and communicate and address these issues that I'm still learning myself, especially with leaders where there is that imbalance. So kia ora, that's a lot, that's a big one, but
Shan, he's a murunga from Whirinaki.
I think it's what tēnā koe, Isaac, you are exactly an exemplar of everything that TupuToa has done. I know Dan at Microsoft, so, you know, ka pai koe. I think it's be exactly who you are. I've just come out of a diversity and inclusion role, and it was a global role. It was beautiful. And what I saw a lot of is a lot of our people jumping into these roles or taking on these roles informally, so as an add-on to their substantive roles, their day-to-day roles. And I think we do that because, again, we have a tendency to, perhaps people are putting a stereotype over us or typecasting us into these roles, you know, okay, so we're handing out the commercial roles, the sales roles, and therefore, Isaac, you can do the diversity and inclusion role. And so we have tended to play into that, and I can see for good reason. I think back to answer your question, I think you should be exactly who you are. And again, trust that for you in that space, there are others in other spaces as well. You don't have to be everything to everyone. And I would encourage all of you to be true to wherever you are at that point in time. The other reason too is because for those of us who are still on our journey, whether that wherever we're from, whatever context that is, and I mean our cultural journey, you will get found short really quickly, and that can be the hardest lesson of all. When you purport to offer an opinion or you purport to be the Māori voice in the room, you probably will have a little bit of initial success, and these organizations put a lot of load on us. But it can be really cruel when we have our own play into that. So I guess the other lesson to that too is that we always, all of us in the room must always support each other. I see a bit of weaponizing against each other. The number one question I used to get in my D&I role used to be from other ethnicities. You know, so for all of the focus on Māori, what about the other ethnicities? And I used to have this almost awkward pause of paralysis because I was whakamā that I'd been put on the spot, and I was slightly more triggered that it was other brown people doing that to me when I was on the stage. Not their fault. If we unpack that, that's a really deep tool of colonialism, right? Let's not go there. So I think my advice to you, to all of us, and this is for all of us, is you have to be true to where you are at that point in time. And as you've heard a number of times, and as you can see, you do progress and you do learn and you will get back up again, but just be true to that moment in time and make sure that you are authentic to that. Because if you're anything but, you will get caught out pretty quickly.
I'm going to add on to that, Isaac. Not all leaders always have the answers, which is why we will reach out and talk to communities and talk to iwi and talk to hapu and dialogue and communicate. Having currently sitting on a leadership role of a government agency, I sit there sometimes and go, what did they just say? And I'll just go, hang on a minute, hang on, back up the canoe. I didn't understand what you said. Because if you don't ask, you won't know. And it's okay to say, slow the conversation down. It's about what you also, as Hayley has said and we've said, it's what you bring to the table. So it will only move as fast as you and the collective want to move. Not without you. Hang on a minute, back it up. You're part of that table. So your thoughts, your response is part of that. So kia kaha. Look, they say Rome wasn't built in a day. So we've got a lot of thinking and a lot of challenges to go. But what's really heartening is that the flavor that we all bring and the experiences that we bring and what that future looks like, through my lens anyway, looks really, really exciting. You know, fantastic. And I look forward to 30 years' time, seeing how the richness that you all bring to that fabric of Aotearoa for our people in the islands, how we go collectively together. Kia ora.
Anyone else? Another question? We have a question from online, Flo? We do. We've got a question online. I'm coming over. All right. Yep. Just get me shimmy my cocoa puff over. All right, Flo, what is the question and where's it come from? Da, 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 da. Our question says, and it's from Hiko Joseph. Mr. Leo, touch on culture and values. Now in the Pacific, our culture and values are embedded into our system and daily practiced in our daily lives. As we are exposed to the world, our values are now challenged if they are still relevant in a global family, and this is very concerning. What would be your advice to Pacific young professionals when put in this position, particularly when it comes to a context of power dynamics in ex-colonizers? Oh, he pātai tino hohonu tērā.
Yeah, sounds like an academic, and I'm going to fail this question out. Well, the first thing I'd say is culture doesn't stand still. Culture evolves. And if your culture doesn't evolve with the times and the challenges it faces, then it can lose meaning and relevance to the young people coming through. So the young Pacific people, we have to take the culture that you're born in and lean into the challenges of the day and work out how to evolve and navigate those challenges, right? Everybody has to decide for themselves what stays true and what is theirs and what doesn't change, and what things they're prepared to listen and evolve over time. And I don't think anyone can define that for you. I think that's part of our journey in life, and it's a part of our leadership journey, is defining what sort of leader are you, right? And that comes from deciding. And this is the other interesting thing around your careers and your growth, that at the same time you're growing your career, you are growing yourself. And how am I changing as a person? How am I evolving, and how do I evolve my career? Those two things don't always go in sync. And they don't necessarily come together when you want it. But those are the challenges that we all have to navigate. So that's kind of my brief response to that question. Thank you.
All goody. Do we have time for another question? Yes, we do. Over there. There we go. I'm coming to you. I'm coming. Okay, we're going over. Okay, let's go. Table number 19, everybody. Up you get, stand up. I'm loving this jacket. Wow, I do too. Thank you. Hey, what is your name? What do you do? Go.
Kia ora koutou. Ko Chantal Apiata tōku ingoa. Ko Ngāpuhi, me Ngāti Toa, me Waikato Tainui o ku waka. O ku iwi. Oh. My question is, so I started Waikato University 20 years ago this year. Like Hayley said, I was 18 years old and I was not being tapu, I was being hapu. And I was living in New Plymouth and Taranaki. I moved to Hamilton, so I could attend Waikato University. I started my degree with one child and I finished my 3-year degree in 11 years with 4 children. Like Savaro said over here, I couldn't afford a laptop and I'd take my baby to the first year of university. I got pregnant again with my second child. And the whole year I was pregnant, I had an exam, next day I had a baby. And then the next year I took my baby to class, I'd breastfeed my baby, rock my baby and write my notes because I couldn't afford a laptop. When I graduated with my 4 children, I went and had a really good job, and then I got pregnant with my 5th child. So my baby was 10 days old and I went and started Te Reo Māori. And I took him to class every night, once a week, every night, every week for a whole year. I'm currently, this is my last semester, my Masters of Management at Waikato University, and I major in Leadership Communication. And I've had to do it part-time as I have 6 kids and I work 300 hours a fortnight because I work for a Māori organisation who contracts to Oranga Tamariki. So I work 1 week in Christchurch and 1 week in Hamilton, and my older children help to raise my 5 and 7-year-old. So I have a 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 15-year-old, 17-year-old, 19-year-old, and 22-year-old, and my just became a grandmother last year. So I'm going for a role next week as a regional manager of half the South Island, and I was just wondering, because in my own organisation, I feel there's no they're all male and leadership. There's I mean, they're not pay on stale, but they're sometimes I feel like when I'm in these meetings that they're misogynistic and a little bit patriarchal, and I feel like that's why I had to study to get a piece of paper, as most of them don't have it, but because I'm a Māori woman. So my question is, how do you deal with the, I'm trying to say it without offending people. Feeling a little bit biased, but also having this working with males in these leadership roles, and being this Māori strong woman in leadership, but not being on being on their level, without feeling intimidated. I don't even know if that's the right question.
No, my baby did get that question.
Kia ora. Beautiful story. And I think we celebrate you being a mother. Definitely is wonderful. I think I can't speak from Māori, but I can definitely speak from being the female in the room many times over many years, particularly at leadership tables. And firstly, I would say to you that you are not lesser. You are not, just because you think through a different lens or you have a different situation doesn't actually make you lesser at that table at all. So that is something I think that I really want to encourage you by, and again, I think that comes to the piece around where I spoke to finding your voice and who do you want to be and what does that mean? But equally, you know, the pathway, as Haley said, is long and it takes a bit of time to build. I really encourage you just to stay there and to speak your mind and to bring some of what you've experienced and what you know into that room and into that mahi, because that's really important, because it's not only the diversity of thought, but it's the understanding. And I often found when I was at these tables with men, mostly white middle-class men, and through the businesses that I've come through, a lot of it was lack of understanding or just not knowing also. So it's important that we speak, but equally, as Haley said and Ed touched on, it's not always your job to fix everything for them or for the situation. But I do want to encourage you not to opt out, to have that resilience, to have that grit, but do it in your way. I've only got one son, but he has often sat in many meeting rooms or, you know, been looked after by somebody else within the business whilst I'm in a meeting or doing something important. So I get it too. There's always a village there that wants to help, and thinking about how do you bring them in to that support network for you so that you can carry on the good mahi that it sounds like, and we know that you'll be doing by just being there.
I know that we need to kind of move on, but before we do that, look, it's really cool to just hang out and spend some time and kind of jam together. But what's really cool is to be in a room that we all matter. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Anne, for the invite. It's always a privilege. Thank you. Ka kite.
Please make lots of noise, everybody, for our facilitator, Agnes Snyder, and our fantastic leadership panel, Leo Fuliaki, Tracy Taylor, Ed Tuari, and Hayley Putarani. Let's hear it, everybody. Just while we get off the stage, I just want to just add on to some of that kōrero about identity and identifying. We as Māori and Polynesian people, sometimes we're always searching to see where we fit in. And then when I was at high school with Marcia, and her brother's here today as well, I think he's still here, you know, I'm like the little white sheep in amongst everyone else. I am Māori, by the way. My grandmother was a beautiful little Māori woman. Right. And one day I am Marcia. One day, it was 1999, I was 13. And we were walking through the Cameron Street Mall in Whangarei, and there was a girl with my grandmother. I'm brought up by my mum and my grandmother. And we were walking through Cameron Street, Whangarei. I remember it very clearly, outside Jeans West. And I never knew really I was that different until one of these girls came along. I won't say her name, but it starts with a C and ends with Assie. And her last name starts with a Mick and ends with Adams. And so Cassie McAdams walked past me one day and said, "Why are you with that Maori woman?" Exactly. And I was thinking, I don't understand. What do you mean? And she said, "Why are you with that Maori woman?" And I was like, "That's my grandmother, you bitch." I just didn't think there was such a thing. And then as a teenager, you start putting through ideas going, am I different? Or am I not supposed to be with her? Or why would you say that? And then you start trying to identify because you don't really know, you know who you are, but you think, well, that person said that, and our school's predominantly white. We're the 0.1% Māori students in our whole private Catholic school. So where do I fit?
Well, you said it there, private Catholic school.
And as I got older, we start going, I don't need to identify with really who I look at or who looks the same as me. If you identify with what is who you are, what you are, where you come from, and own it, mate, it takes you around the world. So the girl over the back there who's got the tribe of children, I can't, there you are.
Yeah.
I just want to say to you,
children making, because you did well.
Yeah. I reckon there should be a degree in children making.
Yeah.
Because that uterus is on fire. But what I want to say to you is you're winning. You are already winning. You're making it. You're doing it. Life is not a dress rehearsal. You get one opportunity. You have the opportunity right now making it. We've traveled around the country for a lot of things, and recently we came back from Tahiti. And what we learned in Tahiti, beautiful country, full of their culture, engari, but they're very limited. They're about 30 years behind what we do here in Aotearoa, celebrating our own people, our Polynesian people, and putting us out to the world. So we are actually very lucky, and you are already winners. You already got plans. All you have to do is add more paint and color to your picture and go out to the world.
Oh, kia ora, Luke for mayor.
TupuToa Connect, everybody, growing Māori and Pacific leaders for a greater Aotearoa.
Oh, tēnā koe.
Damn, I'm good.
Damn, you're good. Hey, come on. All right, right now, we're just going to get you to quickly stand up, shake it around. We're nearly there. We're getting through it. It's awesome. Some music, Mr. DJ, please. Just a little bit. 30 seconds. You guys stretch out to the sky.
For a few seconds, stretch it out. We've been sitting for a whole time.
Yeah.
Get
to
your
the
nono going.
sides. To the sides. Sit up here.
Catch your nono or someone else's. It's all good. We're all family at the end of the day.
I'm loving the music.
Okay, want some onsen music, not tired music.
All right.
Okay,
stretch it out. Love your partner. Hug it out. Yeah, that's the one.
All right, let's take a seat.
Oh, there it is, the beat drop, and we'll all drop too.
We're about to get into our next guest speaker, and I cannot wait for this one.
Ai, kei te hika kakatoa, I am excited.
So
that's right, take your seat, te tātou mā, kia ora tātou. All right, we now step into the Indigenous wisdom and mental health kaupapa. Our next speaker is from North Boating, Apuhinui Tonu e. That's right. Also, Ngāti Kuri Te Rarawa is a mother to 2 adult children. She has been a fellow of the Royal Australia and New Zealand College of Psychiatrists for more than 15 years. She is a consultant child and adolescent psychiatrist at Starship Children's Hospital's Haumaru Orite, Rangatahi and Mama Pepe units, as well as a youth forensic reporter writer and specialist in the neuropsychiatry of traumatic brain injury.
She is on the board of the Helen Clark Foundation and co-author of the HCF report on minimizing harms from methamphetamine and contributor to the report on perinatal mental health. Our guest speaker is the patron of Share My Super, a charity aimed at ending child poverty right here in Aotearoa.
She is a staunch advocate for fostering efforts that bring te reo Māori me ona tikanga, the Māori language and cultural law to support prevention of and recovery from suffering, mental illness, grief, and loss. She is committed to the appropriate delivery of local mātauranga, to the understandings of links between climate emergency, mental distress, and unhealthy relationships with substances to effect meaningful change.
Our guest speaker received the New Zealand Order of Merit for services to Māori in psychiatry in 2019. She has written 2 best-selling books, Aroha, Māori Wisdom for a Contented Life Lived in Harmony with Our Planet, and Wawata, Daily Māori Wisdom Guided by Hina, the Māori Moon, both published by Penguin Random House. In 2021, Aroha was chosen to be part of the Oprah Winfrey Book Club. She's from Te Aupōuri, Tai Tokedo. Please make lots of noise. We've done this before, the applaud work, for the one, the only, the stunning, the fabulous Dr. Hinema Auda.
Te whare tu nei au e, ka ranga mai, te marae ta koto nei ka ranga. E te hiwi he pai nei, te nara ko tau katoa. E noho ana i te roro o tōku whare, ko te reo mihi tērā. Whakarongo rā ku taringa ki te tai o pārengarenga. E āki ana te taha o tō mātou waka, ko kura haupo tērā. Ka titiro whakateraki atu ki muri motu, me hoki maharau ki tū matahina, me tana mahi e ora i tiwi. E ai ki aia, te kuaka marangaranga, ko tahi manu i tau ki te tahuna, tau atu, tau atu, tau atu. Anei te tahi kuaka e mihi ana ki a koutou katoa. Kia ora. Gee, that intro was quite long, guys. I mean, I'm sorry. I apologize. But you know, I do try to keep busy. Today, we are standing on Maunga Piko, the sacred mountain which forms connections with the maunga of Te Tai Tokerau and all around Te Moana Nui a Kiwa. Isn't she beautiful? So we're standing on our Maunga Whakahi, our prominent, prestigious, important mountain of the north. And all of our maunga, and maybe you're thinking about some of your maunga already, are metaphorical and real places from which we see from a new and different perspective. So Maunga Piko, as many of you know, is where Tohe lived, the famous Mr. Oneroa a Tohe, but the Pākehā call it 90 Mile Beach. Quite boring, isn't it? 90 Mile Beach. It's not even 90 miles long. Incorrect. And I wanted to remind us of the power of our minds to travel to this place, or our imagined version of this place, to fly there with the power of Hinengaro, our Māori goddess of the mind. She is, for me, one of the most extraordinary atua. She gives us the abilities to think, feel, imagine, dream, process, to sleep and awaken. She gives us words and the ability to find them, and sometimes keeps those words hidden just when we need them. She can be playful. She can be harsh. Hine ngaro. Ngaro has many meanings and contexts, rather fitting. She can be secretive and go undetected and unnoticed. She gives us the ability to think and feel and plan and make mistakes and learn. She gives us feelings of loss and grief and pain and feeling lost and alone, alongside joy and desire, lust, revenge. She conveys our power to destroy and create. She flies us back and forth in time with ease. We can be in memories of last week, what we cooked for dinner last night, maybe, last year, of childhood, how we'll travel home later, plans for the weekend, and who we want to spend time with, all in the same moment. So who needs AI, right? We're here together now, and we can choose to stand together on the beautiful Maunga Piko. So come up here with me now to bear witness to Hina. You know I'm a fan of Hina, our moon goddess. And today she is in her ohua. She's showing us her ohua face, her fertile face, her ripe, ready for action, ready for growth face. So it's a day about development and exploration of our activities, which seems incredibly fitting. I'm sorry I haven't been here all afternoon, but just coming into the panel, I was thinking, oh, we've all been sharing some sort of consciousness here. Hinengaro's been doing her magic. We're all singing from very similar hymn books. And she's bulging. If you get a chance to have a look tonight, have a look at the sort of bulge that Hina's got going on. It's fertile. We've heard about fertility. And so there's an expectant air of results. We come to meetings on a Friday afternoon and we enjoy the kōrero and we enjoy the connectivity and the whanaungatanga, but we also want to see results, don't we? Yes. So things are not quite revealed in terms of Hina's progress this month. We've got to wait before Oturu and Rako Nui on Sunday and Monday. So there's this sense of anticipation in the air tonight. And as you may know, ohua, the word hua means fruit. So it's about tapping into our wawata, our dreams and aspirations, to trust that they will provide us with some meaningful evidence of change. And so it's also a day that I want us to focus on one of Hinengaro's special areas of focus. Rua I te whakapakari tinana. And we just did a bit of that. We just stood up, moved around, stretched our limbs. Hinengaro has a special cave
a special place for strengthening our bodies with the power of the mind. So for us in Te Tai Tokerau, we see Hinengaro as having 21 caves. These are her storehouses. This is her depth of her, where she hangs out. This is where she deals with her priorities. So I imagine her in her underground rooms, some deep, so deep in the ground that there's like molten lava running past. I see her stoking fires of different types to see into the crevices and corners and taking those long flamed branches. It's a bit sort of Game of Thrones, isn't it? And going through the rocky corridors, revealing fireflies and stalactites and stalagmites and rooms of iridescent gemstones embedded in rock walls. So today we're entering one of those caves, Rua I te whakapakari tinana, the mental drive to be physically healthy. So it's a great place to center our thoughts and plans and get practical about channeling our purposeful thoughts on the interface of mind and body. Rua I te whakapakari tinana. It's a good day for planting. As we say in Opodi, in our okoro of Opodi, he rā tino pai mo te haka tōnei. It's a great day for getting out in the garden and planting, and in the mind garden. So it's a day for planting those seeds of what we might consider to be physical well-being. And I imagine Hinengaro's already planting those seeds for you because she does tend to run ahead, doesn't she? She's already doing those things in your mind. Am I wrong? Have you got stuff going on already? Oh, she resides in many parts of the body too. So she's already in the body. She doesn't just live up here. She lives in the heart, in the puku, in the liver, in the kidneys. She's in the body waiting for us to get going. So how does Rua I te whakapakari tinana begin to take shape for you? Did you experience a little bit of heart sink when I said that? Like, oh no, really going to talk about physical well-being as well? Oh, I hate the gym. You might have had a flood of thoughts about all the things you chastise yourselves about not doing and looking after your bodies as you feel you should. Feelings of not being good enough, the thoughts of being a failure and annoyance and frustration. And yet, let's remember we're standing on top of this beautiful mountain, Maunga Peko, shaped like a fern frond, the epitome of growth and potential, of possibility. So we can go from our cave to our maunga in an instant. And the contrast and comparison is something that Hinenga really likes to tease us with, doesn't she? She loves new thoughts and discovery. So we can hold all those ideas and memories and resistance and hopes at the same moment. We've got that matrix of physical health concepts and emotions, all of that processing coming from Hinengaro. So we've got the seeds being planted without us even thinking about it, right? It's a weird thing to say without us even thinking about it while we're thinking about it. And it's truly magical because, and sometimes frightening, because the thoughts and feelings appear without us deliberately choosing them. They're shaped and allowed into consciousness by Hinengaro and our entire history of connections. So now we might start to feel some results sprouting, developing some resolve to manifest more well-being into our physical movements in response to a mental focus. And I wanted to contrast that with what we might say is Pākehā thinking, because I think one of the themes that I sense from today is like, where are our superpowers? And we have many, and this is just one. So in contrast to Pākehā thinking, we know that our body and mind are not separate, even though we speak about them as if they are. And our ancestors knew it too. The mind-body split problem is something we see in everyday life. So for just one example, working in mental health services, we're often tucked away down the back of the hospital campus in some dingy old building. We're the last to get refurbished. I'm thinking of our poor offices at 2 Maya on the Green Lane site. We're way down the back. There's another building that's got asbestos in it. You know, it's like, it's not a good look for a hospital. And yet, you know, at some point in the next 10 years, our offices might get refurbished. I'm sure you can think of examples too. So this paradigm about the mind and body being separate is so pervasive. And despite we have a wonderful plethora of models such as whare tapawha, other holistic models that come from our cultural backgrounds, models of hauora, where we talk about hinengaro, tinana, all being connected. It really blows my mind that actually those separate entities are not grasped for implementation. I think that's another theme from today. There can be lots of good ideas, but how do we put them into practice? So for us in mental health, our mental health services are actually about pathology. They're about patterns of problematic symptoms which cause functional impairment. So the mental health service label on the door is synonymous, continues to be synonymous with stigma and fear, and associated with that very narrow, solely mind-focused concept of mental illness. We should be more accurately described as mental illness services. Our Indigenous knowledge systems are distinctly different. They emphasize skills and possibility as compared to pathology and deficit. So hinengaro gives us the possibilities to conceptualize and imagine and then determine and decide on our pathways of action. She enables our reflection on progress. She knows our blind spots and our pushback. And after we work on those areas, she allows us to unlock new layers of understanding. She is our superwoman of the mind, available anytime at no financial cost. Anywhere our minds can go, she's already there. She reminds us that while we might focus on elements of body and mind, they are in fact interwoven, intimately part of a holistic experience of being. So there's a trusting energy when we think about the invitation to just let that growth, let that expansion of who we're becoming do its thing. And just like our ohua face of hina, not all is revealed. Some of that enlightenment is obscured from view for now. Just like the maunga, we look at it from this side and then we can't see the other side. We have to walk around and check out the other side, right? We have to do some work on that. And so there's always something left to discover. Something more awaits us. So how do we find a way to trust that the results of the growth can be seen and felt later? Taking hints from nature about our maunga whakahi, standing steadfast in the form of determined growth. I love the pictures that nature gives to us, the metaphors and the things that we can actually go to and reach out and touch. We get hints, don't we? We get hints and signs and tohupai that our mind's efforts are taking effect. We might adjust our posture when we notice we're getting uncomfortable. We think about being in the garden or outside in the car park to get some air. We might let our faces bathe in the winter sun. Oh, if we can find some winter sun. Even the idea of doing something, the idea of dancing, of moving, can make us smile. And we notice thoughts about attraction and feeling sexually aroused and how that moves our bodies in response to those thoughts. We can take time to pay attention to imperceptible movements within us, movements of blood and breath, pulse and heartbeat, the sensuous brush of our skin on our clothes, all of these signals that originate with hinengaro. So she gives us these, what I think of as little morsels of energy from her deep cave, assigned to the special task to propel us into more movement, into action, to whet our appetite for more of her inspiration. And our thoughts do give us also some degree of patience that changes from moment to moment, a chance to observe the changes and begin to revel in them. We can ease into it and truly appreciate how hinengaro and our tinana work together. So rua I te whakapakari tinana is also about ensuring that free flow of mind energy out through the body, ensuring we don't get stuck in our heads. The flow of mental energy can feel trapped or get blocked, building up pressure, and that risks some sort of blowout. And it is Friday, so I'm just wary of that for all of us. Maybe we fear losing control, and so we hold on tight to our mental stresses and strains. But that logic is flawed. Hinengaro needs to flow through us, and our tinana plays a key role there. So I think this is often the missing piece when we talk about the weaving together at the mind-body interface. Having a regular physical practice that allows mind energy to flow outward and mitigate any buildups, blockages, locking up of mind energy that might eventually just bust out. The oscillations between how we consider our minds and bodies weaving their magic allow a healthy release of pent-up emotions, and at the same time provide a chance to shift into a more joyful sense of comfort and ease. So today, Hinengaro's endeavors are emerging, maybe slowly at first. So take it easy, deliberately, enjoy the suspense. So from today, allow Hinengaro's mind compass to live freely in our bodies. Every breath and heartbeat, a chance of the mind to shift slightly and to realize something we hadn't thought of in quite the same way before. Allow her illumination to grow, just like Hina's illumination. Move from the deep cave full of choices and expertise to the top of Maunga Piko and enjoy a new perspective on the power of your own mind, on the power of Hinengaro. So through all that you've shared this afternoon, be prepared. You're going to be waking up in the middle of the night with new revelations in Hina's glow over the weekend. So let her light move you in a new direction. Kia pai tō rā, kia pai tō ahi ahi pō. Kia ora.
Beautiful. Please make lots of noise for the fabulous, the one and only Dr. Hinamore Auda. Dr. Hinamore Auda. Dr. Hinamore Auda.
Oh, I see there. Oh, up on the night. Get it.
If you know what we're knowing, if you know what you're doing, if you know, you know. Hina, she's fabulous. Hinamore Auda, you are fabulous. We love you. Nei te mihi ko wanu wanu kia koe te rangatira tino toa. We love you. Everybody.
Beautiful. And if books are on sale, go buy them. If you haven't read one or don't own one,
go buy them.
It's all out.
Idle Hearts, all there. Dr. Hinamore Auda has said, though, it's Friday. You don't need to do questions for Friday. It's a long day. But she did say, if you do have any partai for her, and those of you are watching at home, so I'll come up to say hi. Hey, everybody at home in the Pacific. Kia ora. Kia ora. If you have any questions, send them to Florida, or send them to TupuToa, and they'll get them answered for you. Cool?
Cool.
Hey, we've almost time to say hi to our Māti wā hoki ki te kāinga, but before we get into the end of the day, are we enjoying ourselves?
Yes.
Do we feel inspired to take on the world?
Yes.
Okay, that was a bit of a piss poor attitude. Okay, I know it's been about 4 hours together. I know it's Friday night and it's in Tamaki Makaurau. You never know who you're going home with.
Wait.
Kōrero. Have we enjoyed ourselves today? Do we feel inspired?
So inspiring.
Do we take on the world?
Yeah.
Do we feel like we identify?
Yes.
That is right.
Kia ora. And if you want to take on the world and take us with you, take us with you.
That's right. We have valid passports and we're a good time.
We are indeed. All right. Our closing remarks, we cannot leave to anybody. We can't leave it to anybody. But of course, we are going to leave it to TupuToa.